Time traveling to marry a wife. 5 beautiful sisters-in-law are going to have my children. Once reborn, the 5 beautiful widowed sisters-in-law tried their best to help me expand the family. Eldest sister-in-law, Chang'an, don't move, let the sister-in-law come. Second sister-in-law, Chang'an, turtle soup is very nutritious, you should drink more. Third sister-in-law, Chang'an, come in. Fourth sister-in-law, Chang'an, the fourth sister-in-law has just found a wonderful way to practice, which can make people refreshed and vigorous. Youngest sister-in-law, Chang'an, Li Changan, help me. Chapter 1. The stunning sister-in-law. Chang'an, the Li family is in trouble. Your sister-in-law can't stand it any longer. Your brothers died early, and your parents are gone too. The task of carrying on the family line falls on you. Don't blame your sister-in-law. In the simple wooden house, a half-naked woman with bare shoulders climbed onto the man after saying that. The man was awakened by the pressure, and squinted his eyes to look over. I saw a woman with an extraordinary face clumsily taking off his pants. Her hands were very slender, her skin was very fair, and she was only wearing a thin coat. Under the illumination of the kerosene lamp, her inner beauty was faintly visible. He stared at her with his eyes wide open, but out of business sensitivity, he didn't dare to look any further. Because he had finally waited until the company went public, if any competitor framed him with a gossip scandal, he would suffer a great loss. Therefore, he had to cut off the risk at the bud. Beauty, wait a minute. Lin Yuero, who was concentrating, exclaimed, shy and happy, Chang'an, you are awake, I scared you to death, how do you feel, are you uncomfortable? He was so into the role, and he was still talking to his sister-in-law. Just as Li Changan was about to speak, his brain suddenly felt a sharp pain, and a chaotic memory rushed straight to his head like a movie played in reverse. It took him a while to recover. It turned out that he traveled to the Great Dragon Kingdom, which was not recorded in history books. The original owner had the same name and surname as him, also called Li Changan. The Li family had served in the army for 3 generations, and had made great achievements in battle. Their whole family was loyal and brave, and was granted the title of Mansion by the previous emperor. However, the merits were so great that the new emperor ascended the throne half a year ago and sent Li Changan's 5 brothers to the battlefield, all of whom died in battle. Then, in the name of rebellion, the whole family of Mansion was executed. Only Li Changan and his 5 sisters-in-law were left, demoted to commoners and exiled to a small border town like Xiangling town. Li Changan, who was used to being spoiled, could not stand such a gap. Not long after, he started to hang out with the gangsters in the village. A few days ago, he lost a lot of money and committed suicide by jumping into the lake when he was unable to repay. This is how he got the advantage. 5 sisters-in-law alone are enough to make him lose money. Chang'an, are you okay? Say something. Don't scare your sisters-in-law again. A shout came from his ears again. Li Changan raised his eyelids, and the huge white snow was so close that he almost sprayed blood. Sister-in-law, what are you doing? This. Lin Yuero looked down and hurriedly covered it with her hands. Just now, she was so busy caring about Li Changan that she completely forgot to tidy herself up. At this time, she was still sitting on Li Changan, her clothes were messy, and her beauty was exposed. The plump and tender breasts were almost touching Li Changan's face. She was so embarrassed that she didn't know what to do, and she wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. Gulp. Li Changan swallowed hard, and smiled evilly. Chang'an, it's not what you think. Sister-in-law wants to be with you. Oh, I. Lin Yuero was shy to do this. When she explained, she danced with joy and danced like a demon. Seeing her like this, Li Changan's heart became even hotter. Oh, Chang'an, since you have seen it, I will tell you the truth. Lin Yuero finally decided to tell the truth. The Li family is in trouble, and you are the only one left. Your parents wrote a letter before they died, hoping that we sisters-in-law can leave a descendant for the Li family. And you have been unconscious for the past few days, and I am afraid that something bad will happen to you, so. Li Changan suddenly understood. But he was new here, and facing Lin Yuero's tenderness, he really couldn't refuse. But, if I don't refuse, it seems. While struggling, Lin Yuero seemed to have made up her mind. She bit her lip and said, Chang'an, you can say that my sister-in-law is shameless or call her a lowly person. Anyway, this is what we promised the Li family. The Li family is full of loyal and brave people. Your other sisters-in-law and I don't want the Li family to be extinct. Let's complete this last step and continue the Li family's fireworks. The rosy skin and charming fragrance all stimulated Li Changan's heartstrings. Especially at this moment, Lin Yuero was still sitting on him. There was only a thin barrier between the two. You can clearly feel the full curves and delicateness. Li Changan's blood was boiling. Since it has come to this, what reason is there to refuse? Little sister-in-law, come on. Lin Yuero trembled when she heard the words, her cheeks were like red apples, and she didn't dare to look at Li Changan. The messy skirt was scattered more and more. But the movements were still a little stiff and clumsy, which made Li Changan anxious. Little sister-in-law, you haven't done it. I. Lin Yuero hesitated, with a hint of resentment in her eyes. Your sisters-in-law and I were married to the Zhenghua mansion not long ago, and your brothers were always busy with affairs, and later died in the battlefield, so we were naturally. Fuck. Li Changan was shocked. 5 sisters-in-law, all still girls. This is simply a treasure. Little sister-in-law, let me do it. Li Changan turned over and pressed Lin Yuero under him. Chapter 2, Cleaver shocks bully. Just when Li Changan was about to take off his horse with his spear. Bang, bang, bang. The courtyard door outside the house was suddenly kicked hard by someone. The spring scene inside the house was interrupted. Lin Yuero pushed Li Changan away like a frightened little rabbit. Li Changan was immediately furious. Who is it? So blind. Sister-in-law Lin, are you home? Come out quickly, I know you are here. If you don't come out, don't blame me for kicking the door in. A rough and barbaric voice came. Lin Yuero's pretty face changed, and she hurriedly put on her clothes. It's Wang Tiezhu from the village. Changan, sister-in-law will open the door, you lie down in the house, don't come out, understand? After saying that, she walked out with lotus steps. Wang Tiezhu. Li Changan searched his memory and soon remembered. Isn't it the bully from the village? This guy is tall and strong, but he does not work all day long. He eats, drinks, gambles, and has sex. He either steals or flirts with decent women. Especially after Li Changan and his men were exiled here, several sisters-in-law were in their prime, far from being comparable to ordinary village girls, and many bachelors coveted them. Among the gangsters here, Wang Tiezhu is the most shameless. He comes to pry open the door every now and then, wishing his eyes were on the door. Li Changan drank and played cards because of him. This bastard even bewitched Li Changan several times and asked him to sell his sisters-in-law to him. Fortunately, Li Changan was useless before, but he was not stupid and did not fall for it. Otherwise, God knows what the consequences would be. Thinking of this, Li Changan got up and followed him out. At the gate of the courtyard. When Wang Tiezhu, who had dark skin, saw Lin Yuero, his eyes lit up. Like an animal, Sister Lin, why did you open the door after knocking for so long? What are you doing? Lin Yuero was naturally disgusted, but she pretended to be indifferent. I took a nap and you woke me up. Tiezhu, what do you want? I came to ask if your brother-in-law is awake. Wang Tiezhu looked inside. My brother-in-law hasn't woken up yet, but is much better. Lin Yuero said, pretending to close the door, thank you for your concern. Hey, Sister Lin, don't worry. Wang Tiezhu blocked the wooden door and laughed. Sister Lin, did you forget something? You owe me 5 taels of silver, it's time to pay it back. Tiezhu, my brother-in-law has been bedridden these days, I've been taking care of him, I haven't been able to take care of my livelihood. When Lin Yuero mentioned this, her heart tightened. Please give me some more time, I will definitely pay you back the money I owe you. But I've been unlucky recently, I lost a lot of money, I don't even have money for a drink. Wang Tiezhu looked up and down. Sister Lin, please don't make it difficult for me. This. Lin Yuero didn't know how to refute for a moment. Sister Lin, I have a good idea. Since you don't have the money to pay, just pay it back with your body. Wang Tiezhu said as he rushed towards Lin Yuero. Lin Yuero reacted quickly and dodged, angrily scolding, Wang Tiezhu, what are you doing? Sister Lin, you beautiful ladies, why do you stay with a useless brother-in-law all day long? Wang Tiezhu showed his true face and approached, why not enjoy yourself with me? With my reputation in the village, eating and drinking is not a problem. Besides, all your men are dead, you must be lonely. I am strong and good at kung fu, I will definitely make you happy. Lin Yuero was ashamed and angry, her beautiful eyes glared, Wang Tiezhu, you are just a shameless second-rate guy, how dare you do this? Get out now, or I will report to the police. Har har har, where can you report to the police in this poor and remote place? You are just a refugee now, you really think you are the general's wife? Wang Tiezhu sneered, I must deal with you today. Asshole, let go. Lin Yuero, as one of the wives of the Zhenguo mansion, did learn some boxing. However, Wang Tiezhu was born with brute force and was no match for him. Seeing that he was about to fall into the hands of the other party, he was so anxious that tears were about to fall out. Stop! A loud shout. Li Changan, who came out of the house, was furious when he saw this scene. Wang Tiezhu, you dare to set your sights on my sister-in-law. If she loses a hair today, I will kill you. The sudden change made Wang Tiezhu stunned for a moment, but he soon sneered, Oh, Li Changan, you are quite good at choosing the time, you wake up now. Your sister-in-law owes me 5 taels of silver and is unable to repay it. I use her as compensation, what's the problem? If you know what's good for you, just go back to the house and wait for me to finish my work, I will treat you to a drink. Drink your mother. Li Changan cursed, if you have the guts, try to move. I will move, so what? Do you want to compete with me? Wang Tiezhu raised his eyebrows with disdain. In his eyes, Li Changan, with his weak arms and legs, can't even do the important physical work. He can't pose any threat at all. Changan, go in quickly, sister-in-law can handle it herself. Lin Yuero's eyes were red. Although she wanted to get rid of Wang Tiezhu, she was more worried about her brother-in-law. It was not easy to wake up. If Wang Tiezhu beat her up, wouldn't it be even worse? Okay. Li Changan said one word, turned around and took out a kitchen knife from the kitchen. Wang Tiezhu, I may not be able to beat you, but if you dare to bully my sister-in-law, I will scrape off a layer of flesh from your body even if I risk my life. The sharp kitchen knife had just been sharpened, and Wang Tiezhu felt a chill in his heart. You can't even kill a chicken, how dare you kill people? If you don't believe it, you can try and see if I dare to kill. Li Changan's words were sonorous. Besides, don't forget that although the Zhenguo mansion no longer exists, we are just refugees, but we are descendants of a famous family after all. The emperor didn't chop off my head at the beginning, so who are you? If it gets out, you are a traitor and a provocation to the emperor's power. Not to mention that your life will be killed, it is not a light punishment to implicate all 9 clans. The words were said with great momentum. Li Changan stared at Wang Tiezhu with a sharp gaze, do you dare? Wang Tiezhu was a country ruffian after all, and had never seen any big battles. He was so scared that he was sweating and almost wanted to run away, don't exaggerate. Even if it's like this, do you not have to pay back the money you owe? I will pay you back tomorrow. Li Changan said immediately. Wang Tiezhu gritted his teeth and looked at Lin Yuero unwittingly, okay, I'll let you go. If you can't pay the money tomorrow, I won't believe you even if you say something. He turned around and left the yard. Lin Yuero was stunned. Is this still the timid, cowardly, and weak brother-in-law? With just a few words, Wang Tiezhu was forced to retreat. The momentum and sharpness almost shocked her. Chapter 3: The heroic fourth sister-in-law. After Wang Tiezhu walked away. Clang! The kitchen knife fell to the ground. Li Changan sat on the ground, gasping for breath. He had just woken up and felt weak. He had almost used up all his strength to scare Wang Tiezhu. Changan, are you okay? Lin Yuero hurried forward and helped him up. Sister-in-law, I'm fine, just a little weak. Li Changan shook his head. You scared me to death, you dared to confront Wang Tiezhu and fight him. Lin Yuero scolded, it's a good thing that Wang Tiezhu is a country hooligan, he really believed you. We have all been demoted to commoners, how can the emperor care about our lives? You are pretending to be an elephant. Li Changan grinned. I didn't expect you to do this. Lin Yuero couldn't help laughing, but soon became worried, but why did you promise him to pay back the money tomorrow? It's 5 taels of silver. The family is already in financial difficulty. Even if you add your third and fourth sisters-in-law, it's not enough. What should I do? After hearing this, Li Changan didn't know if he had some memory loss. He didn't have a deep impression of the other sisters-in-law. So he asked, Sister-in-law, where are the other 4 sisters-in-law? Your eldest sister-in-law and second sister-in-law. He learned the situation from Lin Yuero. Eldest sister-in-law Jiang Bingyun and second sister-in-law Qi Qinjie were attacked by bandits during their exile and got separated from them. Their whereabouts are still unknown. Third sister-in-law Zhu Yanyu went to the town to work as a long-term worker in order to have a stable source of income for the family. She would come back once a month after receiving her wages at the end of the month. Fourth sister-in-law spent most of her time hunting in the mountains, exchanging her prey for some change to maintain her daily expenses, but the income was not good and she often returned empty-handed. The fifth sister-in-law, Lin Yuero, is also the younger sister-in-law, who is responsible for the housework. She takes care of Li Changan. After listening to this, Li Changan couldn't help but sigh in his heart. The five sisters-in-law were either royal relatives or from wealthy families. They should have lived a life of luxury and worry-free. But because of him, they lived in such poverty. If they don't fight for their dignity, the sisters-in-law will probably not have a good end. Little sister-in-law, don't we have a jade pendant at home? Li Changan immediately took out a jade pendant wrapped in fine silk from the cabinet. There are two dragons entwined on the jade pendant, and the carving level is excellent. It should be worth a lot of money. In the past, it was carefully hidden by the younger sister-in-law, and no one was allowed to touch it. Now that it has come to a critical moment, it is better to take out this broken thing and exchange it for some money. But when Lin Yuero saw it, her face suddenly changed, and she snatched the jade pendant. No! Lin Yuero refused sternly, wrapping it up again as if a treasure was robbed, and carefully put it in the cabinet. This jade pendant was handed to her by her father-in-law before the Li family was in trouble. She was asked to keep it well. This item was related to Li Changan's life experience. If there was a life and death crisis in the future, this jade pendant could protect Li Changan and their lives. How could she sell it? Don't worry, sister-in-law, I will definitely find a way to pay Wang Tiezhu back tomorrow. Seeing that sister-in-law regarded it as a treasure, Li Changan did not force it, but made a solemn promise. Although this dynasty did not exist in history, its level in all aspects was similar to that of the ancient dynasties. He was the boss of a listed company who traveled from modern society. With advanced concepts and cognition, making money is like playing, right? Chang'an, that's 5 taels of silver, not a small amount. How can you think of a solution? Lin Yuero didn't believe it, still with a worried look on her face. You don't want to gamble again, do you? I tell you, 9 out of 10 gamblings will lead to losses. That's not the right way, don't do this. Sister-in-law, I don't gamble. Li Changan said with a smile, I will not only pay back Wang Tiezhu's money, but also find the eldest sister-in-law and the second sister-in-law, so that you 5 sisters-in-law can live a good life and never suffer again. Believe me, I can do it. Chang'an, you. Lin Yuero shuddered, and couldn't even believe that this came from his mouth. You know, he used to be pampered, with a young master's temper, cowardly and timid, and never sympathetic. Since being exiled to the countryside, the sisters-in-law have not only had to deal with various troubles and run around for life. They also often have to worry about this young master. Now, hearing him speak so sensibly, she couldn't help but feel a lump in her throat and was moved. Chang'an, I didn't expect that you have grown up after falling ill this time. You are like a man and know how to protect your sisters-in-law. What do you mean like? I am a man, okay. Li Changan patted his chest unconvinced. By the way, sister-in-law, it's still early, take me to find my 4th sister-in-law. By the way, I also want to go hunting. You go hunting? Lin Yuero looked at him with a suspicious look. Chang'an, the mountain roads are difficult to travel, and there are many snakes, insects and wild beasts. If your 4th sister-in-law hadn't relied on martial arts training and good skills, she wouldn't dare to go into the mountains to hunt. Forget it, let's wait for her to come back. Sister-in-law, I know my limits. Li Changan already knew it in his heart. Although he was a boss who lived in a big city with a lot of debauchery in his previous life, he grew up in a mountain village in the northeast since he was a child. It's no exaggeration to say that he even hunted leopards. In this dynasty, many places were in a primitive state. If they could get something big, Wang Tiezhu would have money. Lin Yuero finally couldn't resist his insistence and had to take him into the mountains. It was not far from the village. After about half an hour, Li Changan saw a simple shack outside a deep forest from a distance. We're here. Lin Yuero pointed to the front and said, that's your 4th sister-in-law's shack. Sometimes you need to stay in the mountains for several days in a row and stay there temporarily. There was only a simple wooden bed, a pot of water and a broken bowl in the shack. No one was seen. Your 4th sister-in-law may have gone into the mountains. Lin Yuero said. Chang'an, little sister, why are you here? Just then, a figure came in, quite surprised. Li Changan looked up and was immediately amazed. Long legs and thin waist, proud figure. Wearing a double-breasted short shirt, animal skin skirt, black boots, and knee pads. Holding a bow and arrow in his hand, their whole person looks heroic. She looks very similar to Nazar. Is this the fourth sister-in-law Zhu Yanyu? She is so beautiful. Fourth sister, we came to see you. Lin Yuero smiled. The sisters-in-law had a good relationship when they were in Jingguo Mansion and always called each other sisters. How is the harvest these days? Hunting takes time. Zhu Yanyu usually stays in the mountains for several days. So she didn't know about Li Changan's suicide by jumping into the lake. When asked about the harvest, her pretty face blushed and said embarrassedly, "Hey, don't mention it. It's really unlucky recently. I didn't even catch a pheasant. Maybe they know there is a hunter king guarding here, so they don't dare to come out. They are quite proud." Li Changan laughed secretly in his heart. Fourth sister-in-law, are you sure it's not a technical problem? Changan, you dare to look down on me. Zhu Yanyu's pretty face became even redder. Little sister, you go into the mountains, why do you bring Changan with you? With his small body, he is so weak, what if he collapses from exhaustion? Lin Yuero didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said he wanted to come hunting too. What? He can't even catch a chicken, and he wants to hunt. Zhu Yanyu smiled contemptuously. Okay, little sister, take Changan back quickly. I still have to stay for a few days, don't make trouble here. Fourth sister-in-law, what if I can catch prey? Li Changan said. You? Zhu Yanyu raised her eyebrows. Her desire to win came up. If you can catch prey, even if it's just a rabbit, your sister-in-law, will call you brother from now on. Chapter 4 Blind Bear. Li Changan looked at Zhu Yanyu's pretty blushing face and felt itchy in his heart. He chanted a few Amitabha in his heart, coughed twice, and straightened his face. Then it's a deal. For a moment, Li Changan's mind suddenly appeared his fourth sister-in-law standing in front of him, with her head lowered, shyly calling him little brother. He. Li Changan couldn't help but laugh. Zhu Yanyu asked curiously, why are you grinning? No, nothing, let's go into the mountains. Li Changan quickly changed the subject and the two of them quickly entered the mountain. Just as Zhu Yanyu said, the two of them didn't see a single living creature along their way. No wonder Zhu Yanyu had gained nothing in so many days. Let's go inside a little further. We have to pack something for today. Zhu Yanyu gritted her teeth. The eldest sister-in-law is like a mother. It is no exaggeration to say that their family is now in the situation of orphans and widows. If they meet those shameless people in the village, they will really attack them. What's more, they owed a lot of silver. According to the laws of the time, debtors like them could even sell them to brothels. Zhu Yanyu stayed in the mountains for a long time, but every time she went back, she saw the creditor named Wang Tiezhu near her home. The way that man looked at her always made her shudder. Fourth sister-in-law, please stop for a moment. Li Changan stopped not far behind Zhu Yanyu. He lowered his head to look at the black particles under the tree and picked up a broken dry grass branch from the particles. It had criss-cross teeth marks on it and some short light brown hairs. Are there rabbits in the mountains? Zhu Yanyu had originally thought that Li Changan was frightened by something, so she came over upon hearing what he said, and couldn't help but look at Li Changan in surprise. When did you learn to look at rabbits? Her brother-in-law has always been a scholar. He can't carry anything on his shoulders or lift anything with his hands, let alone go into the mountains. How could he have such an ability? The old immortal taught me in my dream. Immortal? Zhu Yanyu's eyes widened. Is there such a thing? What else did the old immortal teach you? That's a lot of see, just wait and see. Li Changan winked at Zhu Yanyu. Zhu Yanyu forced a smile and was skeptical about what Li Changan said. Although Li Changan did find the rabbit, it was not easy to catch it. If he didn't catch it, the silver would be. Li Changan could also see Zhu Yanyu's worry and anxiety, and sighed in his heart. The previous master left him with a big problem. Physical problems were a small matter. The most serious test was the money. He scared Wang Tiezhu once, but he couldn't scare him the second time. If he can't get the money tomorrow, he won't be able to stop anyone with his physical condition. By then, his sister-in-law will really be taken away by Wang Tiezhu. Any man can imagine what he will do. Fortunately, it is not difficult to catch wild rabbits. Li Changan rummaged in the haystack for a long time, cut a few bamboo strips with a knife, thought for a while, tore a strip of cloth from his body, used the elasticity of bamboo to build a small cage on the ground, and then pulled down a tall bamboo next to it and tied it together. Children living in the countryside all know that hares run fast, but they can also be relatively clumsy at times. If it is lifted by its hind legs, it will lose the ability to escape to a large extent. If an ordinary insect jumps on this kind of bamboo, it will not trigger the mechanism. However, if an insect is as heavy as a rabbit, its legs will be strangled by the mechanism after it jumps on it. Then the bamboo will bounce back, and the hung rabbit will be unable to struggle. That is to say, Li Changan is weak now. In the past, if this kind of machine was made bigger, it could even hunt wild boars and black bears. Did you learn this from the old immortal in your dream? Zhu Yinyu leaned over to take a look and whispered, "Will this work?" A man can't say no. Li Changan bared his teeth, took out some vegetable cakes made by Lin Yuero from his arms, and scattered them near the trap. Zhu Yinyu always felt that there was something wrong with these words, but she couldn't tell what was wrong. "Let's go. I'll go cut some long tree spears to make traps. If we're lucky, we might even be able to hunt wild boars." That's what he said, but halfway through, Zhu Yinyu took over the entire matter. "Just take a good rest. The spear is too heavy for you to bear." After Zhu Yinyu chased the people away, he buried his head in his work. After arranging everything, Li Changan pulled Zhu Yinyu away from the trap and waited patiently. Although it was a clear and refreshing autumn day, Zhu Yinyu still felt restless and hot. If it doesn't work? She anxiously held the bow and arrow in her hand, her expression full of uneasiness. Shouldn't we rely on Li Changan's useless trap? The debt owed by the family is no joke. She stood up quickly and tried to walk over there, but Li Changan reached out and grabbed her. "Wait a moment." Li Changan looked up at the sky and waited until dusk before letting go of Zhu Yinyu and slowly walking inside along the route where the trap had just been set. Good luck. Although there were a few empty cages, there were more wild rabbits hanging on bamboos and kicking their legs. These rabbits would be worth about 3 or 4 taels of silver. Li Changan heaved a sigh of relief and looked inside again. Maybe he could collect enough money for tomorrow. "These things you made are actually useful." Zhu Yinyu held the fat rabbit in her hand, her eyes full of surprise, astonishment and admiration. With this technology, she would have no worries about catching these little creatures before they escape. Ahem. She slowly moved towards Li Changan and whispered, "Where did you learn this? Can you teach me? When we get back, I'll draw a picture for my sister-in-law." Li Changan, also holding a string of rabbits, nodded, and walked quickly forward. "The most important thing is to quickly collect 5 taels of silver." Click. There was another sound ahead. Oh, another rabbit was caught. Zhu Yinyu's face lit up with joy, and she was even faster than Li Changan, running quickly forward. Li Changan followed closely behind, but after a few steps, he saw Zhu Yinyu standing there stiffly, not moving at all. "Sister-in-law." Before he finished speaking, he saw a black shadow slowly standing up in front of Zhu Yinyu. The black shadow was several times larger than an ordinary person, with a few streaks of white hair on its chest and eyes that reflected a bright light under the moonlight. Under its feet was the trap that Li Changan had set earlier, which had long been crushed to pieces by it. Only a few bamboo thorns pierced its feet, which made it even angrier. Roar! It opened its bloody mouth and roared loudly in the direction of the two people. Li Changan could almost smell the bloody stench coming from that thing's mouth, its huge fangs, and its tongue full of barbs, right in front of the two of them. Not to mention being bitten, just being licked by that thing can tear off the flesh from a person's body. It's a blind bear. As it roared, the mountains and forests shook. Several dry white skulls rolled out from behind it. Some of them had not even rotted away completely, and they all looked like they had died with their eyes open. Even though Zhu Yinyu was used to going into the mountains, she couldn't help but scream when she saw the current situation. She had heard before that black bears had killed people in the mountains, and she originally thought it was a rumor, but who would have thought it was true? What to do? Li Changan was covered in cold sweat and his breathing became extremely heavy. Chapter 5 How can there be such a good deal? Changan, run! After the panicked Zhu Yinyu reacted, she subconsciously pushed Li Changan away and stood in front of him. Don't move! Don't move! Li Changan shouted loudly, and Zhu Yinyu suddenly froze in place, trembling. He looked at the black bear, his palms sweating and his heart pounding. Run quickly, fourth sister-in-law has a solution. After taking a few deep breaths, Zhu Yanyu rolled over and grabbed the stick beside him. The stick was twisted and crooked, but it was more than 2 meters long. This was the most common thing in the mountains. Fourth sister-in-law, don't. Li Changan wanted to call her, but it was too late. Zhu Yanyu had already swung his long stick and smashed it at the black bear. She thought that if she acted a little more ruthless, she might be able to scare the black bear away. Bang! The stick head broke into pieces as it was hit from the blow. Li Changan, who was thinking of a solution, was hit hard on the head by the flying stick before he could react. Oh shit! Li Changan grimaced in pain and rubbed his forehead frantically, but the black bear dodged very nimbly. I'll hit you. Seeing that he failed to hit him, Zhu Yanyu hit him with another stick. Fuck! I'll hit you. Fuck! I'll hit you. Fuck! Bang bang bang. Li Changan grabbed his hair while enduring the most violent blow from the stick, screaming in pain. He has changed several positions. Why are the broken sticks flying towards his head? Li Changan couldn't help but complain, and seriously suspected that his fourth sister-in-law had practiced the art of shooting the bull from behind the mountain. When Zhu Yanyu raised the stick that was only a little over 1 meter long, Li Changan's face turned pale and he quickly shouted, "Sister-in-law, stop it. If you keep hitting it like this, it will catch a cold. My head is about to be hit and I am confused." But Zhu Yanyu didn't have the heart to pay attention to Li Changan at all. She just wanted to drive away the black bear quickly. Li Changan was the only heir of the Zhenguo mansion, and nothing must happen to him. Just when she was about to continue fighting, the black bear suddenly roared as if enraged, opened its bloody mouth, showing its fangs, and rushed towards Zhu Yanyu quickly. Fourth sister-in-law, hide quickly. Li Changan pounced forward, hugged Zhu Yanyu and rolled down the slope. Too soft. Pooh. What are you thinking about? Hey. Black blind man, look at me. Li Changan got up from the ground and ran to the other side. The black bear ran madly towards Li Changan's position. Li Changan suddenly picked up the bow and arrow that fell on the ground, pulled the bowstring with trembling arms, and unexpectedly shot directly into the black bear's eye socket. 1 arrow, 2 arrows, 3 arrows. With a loud bang, the huge black bear fell to the ground. But Li Changan did not dare to delay. He shot all his existing arrows at the black bear's neck, and then walked towards the black bear. He looked down at the black bear, and all the courage in his body instantly disappeared. He shivered and fell down beside the black bear. After a long while, he stood up and walked towards Zhu Yanyu's position. Zhu Yanyu's sobbing could be heard in the mountains and forests. Fourth sister-in-law. Li Changan called out to her, and Zhu Yanyu turned around. She looked at Li Changan in disbelief, and in her excitement, she actually ran over and hugged Li Changan. The soft skin pressed against Li Changan's body, bringing a feeling of warmth. Li Changan was stunned at first, then he chuckled twice. No wonder most people like heroes to save beauties. Who wouldn't he like this treatment? Even though I like it, it's really painful. Sister-in-law, I can hardly breathe. Li Changan said with a wry smile. Zhu Yanyu then realized that her behavior was inappropriate. She quickly let go of his hand and looked Li Changan up and down. You scared me to death, I thought you. Before she could finish her words, she saw Li Changan hunched over with an extremely embarrassed look on his face. Wow, I didn't expect our Chang'an to have grown up and become a man. Zhu Yanyu's pretty face turned red and she couldn't help but joked. Although she was still a virgin, after the wedding date was set, someone taught her about the matters between men and women, so she naturally understood them. Fourth sister-in-law, we have made a fortune this time. Zhu Yanyu didn't react at first, then her eyes widened and she looked at Li Changan in disbelief. You mean? Li Changan nodded, and then said, it's already dark now, it's not easy to go down the mountain. When it's daybreak, let's go back to the village to find someone and take this thing back. This territory belongs to the black bear, and no other ferocious beasts will come here in the short term. Instead, we have to be on guard against some small carnivorous animals coming and dividing up the black bear's territory. Fortunately, Zhu Yanyu was able to handle it. The next morning, just after daybreak, Li Changan returned to the village. He stood at the entrance of the village and thought for a moment, then ran to the end of the village and knocked on Erguzi's door. Speaking of Erguzi, he and Li Changan often play tricks on each other on weekdays. According to the saying of people in the village, he is a slippery dough. Although he is smart, he is not honest. But he is also one of the few people that Li Changan can call upon. Brother Chang'an? Are you here to play cards with me right now? Urguzi didn't know where he had stayed up all night. When he came back, he met Li Changan at the door and quickly pulled Li Changan away. Don't mess with me. If my parents see me, I won't have this leg anymore. I want to sneak back quietly. Li Changan looked at him and said quickly, I have something good to tell you. Come with me. Urguzi suddenly grinned and said, What's up, Brother Chang'an? Are we going to spy on Widow Zhang taking a bath? But this is inappropriate, aren't you always thinking about that little widow? Stop talking nonsense and go get Huzi too. Li Changan's face turned dark. His original body was indeed infatuated with the village widow Zhang. No wonder he was misunderstood. Okay, Brother Chang'an thinks of his brothers when he has something good to do. That's very righteous. Urguzi agreed immediately and pulled Li Changan away. Li Changan was too lazy to explain. Once everyone was gathered, he went up the mountain. Huzi followed Li Changan obediently, while Urguzi took a deep breath in secret. Going to the mountain, it's exciting enough. The three of them walked for a while and came to Zhuyanyu. In addition to the dead blind bear, there were many other small animals that had been hunted around. Hey, fourth sister-in-law? Did fourth sister-in-law get something good? I thought it was Brother Chang'an who got something. Zhuyanyu frowned and said, It was Chang'an who beat him, not me. Oh, I don't even know my brother, what can I do aha? Urguzi walked inside while talking. When he saw the black bear lying on the ground, he could not help but let out a scream. He fell to the ground and kept backing away. Bear. If it wasn't a bear, I wouldn't have called you here. It's dead. Li Changan kicked him lightly from behind, hurry up, move it down. Li Changan thought clearly that they had only been in the village for a few years and they didn't know how long they would stay. Except for those with whom he had grudges, it would be best to build good relationships with the rest. And there are bears here, so we can form a bear hunting team. Both bear paws and bear skin are worth a lot of money. Urguzi cried and howled for a long time before he was sure that the bear was really dead. He wiped his forehead and crotch fearfully. He didn't dare to talk sweetly to Li Changan anymore and obediently followed Xiaohu and Li Changan to carry the big black bear away. As soon as they arrived at the village entrance, Urguzi immediately released the black bear. Brother, I'm going to go get my parents first, and you ask Xiaohu to notify the others. Good things like distributing bear meat should be done as soon as possible. Urguzi ran away in a flash. As for Xiaohu, it was only after Li Changan nodded that he trotted away. Li Changan stood at the entrance of the village for half an incense stick of time. From a distance, a series of footsteps and Urguzi's cries of pain could be heard. No, why are you two still hitting me? I already said it was Li Changan who asked you to come and divide the bear meat. It's not me who has to wake you all up. From the sounds, Urguzi's parents and nearby villagers were quite dissatisfied because they were called over so early in the morning. Chapter 6 Robbery. Li Changan? That gambler? Let's get this straight. He's just a wimp. He's a son of a bitch. How can he beat a bear? I saw you guys were out fooling around again yesterday. You're still drunk now, right? There were a few more slapping sounds, and Urguzi howled like a pig at New Year's, and crawled towards Li Changan. With snot and tears on his face, he pointed at the black bear and howled, Why would I lie to you? Can't you see those two eyeballs hanging on your face? Urguzi felt very aggrieved. When it came to dividing the bear meat, Urguzi immediately called his parents. As a result, not only was he beaten, his parents also called all the neighbors over. Said he wanted to teach Li Changan a lesson. The villagers behind him crowded into the path, their faces still full of grumpiness from having just woken up, some with their sleeves rolled up, some with weapons brought along. Many people probably couldn't find anything convenient to use when they got up, so they even brought their own fire pokers and spatulas. Are you really planning a gang fight? Li Changan smacked his lips. He never expected that his reputation in the village was so low. Where's Li Changan? Come out. All you do is instigate my son all day long. You have led my son astray. You're still bullying Huzi for being honest, and now you're fooling us. A group of people ran towards Li Changan. At the last moment, someone howled first, Bear. The bear is here again. Li Changan wants to kill us. Everyone screamed and ran back. Wang Er, who was watching the excitement from a distance, was so frightened that his whole body trembled and he also wanted to run. Looking at this scene, Erguzi laughed so hard that he blew a big snot bubble. See, he's not the only coward. This is the bear cub killed by our brother Li. What are you afraid of? They are all dead. Erguzi greeted the crowd in front, while Huzi was blocking the crowd at the back. The two men drove all the villagers back like they were chasing sheep. Really, really dead. The villagers looked at Li Changan carefully, then looked at the black bear behind Li Changan, their eyes full of suspicion. No way. Who is Li Changan, that he has this ability? Ergo's father, go take a look. Someone nudged Wang Tiezhu, who was at the front, with his elbow and said, you are responsible for what your Ergo caused. Wang Tiezhu shrank back, but was pushed forward by someone and directly in front of Erguzi. Erguzi laughed strangely and quickly stood behind Li Changan, winking at him. Brother Li, my dad was the first to come up, can you give him more points later? Li Changan didn't care about this. Erguzi also helped carry the things, so it was only natural that he should get a bigger share. Wang Tiezhu glared at Erguzi several times. This unfilial son. All he does all day long is play cards and drink with that gangster Li Changan. Sooner or later he will break Erguzi's legs. He walked forward cautiously, and in front of many villagers, he raised his foot and kicked the bear's paw. Wang Tiezhu's action obviously frightened many villagers, who screamed in fear and dared not watch the scene that followed. That black bear will definitely eat Wang Tiezhu. It seems like it's really dead. Wang Tiezhu walked a few steps inside in surprise, and saw the scratches on the black bear's neck at a glance. It was not much different from Erguzi's. He sat on the ground in shame, and his whole body was shaking. Fuck. Really dead. After hearing what Wang Tiezhu said, many villagers became interested and approached carefully, their eyeballs almost popping out of their sockets. What? Li Changan beat us. And he wants to share the meat with us. The rest of the villagers finally came to their senses. They looked at each other, feeling ecstatic but unable to believe their ears. Didn't he the sun rise from the west today? But thinking back to their performance just now, many people secretly hid the fire sticks and other things in their hands behind their backs and laughed dryly at Li Changan. Brother Chang'an, you are amazing. In the awkward silence, a woman with makeup on walked out from behind the crowd. She had more decorations on her body than most women in the village, and she also had a slight fragrance on her body. She slowly walked to Li Changan. Li Changan knew this widow Zhang. Before they were exiled here, this widow was the most beautiful woman in the village. The men who usually hang around her door and want to work for her can be said to be lined up from one end of the village to the other. I didn't expect her personality to be so fiery. Li Changan said politely, it was just a fluke for me. I never thought you were so capable and kind-hearted. You don't even know how long it has been since I last ate meat. She bit her red lips and threw a coquettish look at Li Changan. She placed her fingers on the back of Li Changan's hand and gently drew circles, moving closer to him while talking. Her movements were secretive, and no one saw them except Li Changan and the people behind him. Erguzi winked at Huzi from behind and said, it seems that besides our parents, this widow can also get a little more meat. Zhu Yinyu couldn't help but frown after hearing this. Li Changan didn't notice the small movements of the people behind him. He watched Widow Zhang's hand moving down continuously, and quickly reached out to pinch her slender wrist. What are you doing? You're pinching me so hard. How can my bones be so hard? Although she said this, Widow Zhang's eyes kept looking down, and it was obvious that she had something in mind. Cough. The fourth sister-in-law was still behind, and Li Changan had no intention of acting out a pure pornographic scene in public, so he quickly coughed twice. Everyone, don't just stand there, hurry up and line up. My fourth sister-in-law will be in charge of distributing the meat. Each family will get 1 or 2 pieces to start the meal. He pushed the Widow Zhang's thin back again, you go and queue up too. Widow Zhang glanced at him, somewhat reluctantly. An ignorant little brat. She groaned and reluctantly stood in front of the team. The others also surrounded Li Changan. Thank you, Brother Changan. Thank you. They rubbed their hands together, looking somewhat uneasy. Normally, their relationship with Li Changan wasn't very good, so they didn't know if Li Changan was willing. Li Changan just raised his eyebrows and motioned for them to line up and share the meat. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and the atmosphere suddenly became joyful. Everyone had a smile on their face, and they looked eagerly at the black bear waiting to be poured. At this time, Wang Tiezhu, who was waiting to see the joke from a distance, couldn't help it anymore. Wait! What are you dividing? What are you dividing? He brought his friends and barged into the village, surrounding the black bear. Don't you know that Li Changan owes me money? His things are mine. Is it your turn to take them? You really take yourself seriously. Wang Tiezhu didn't even look at Li Changan. He didn't even take Li Changan seriously and just waved to his cronies. Hurry up and carry our bear back. Chapter 7. I said I didn't mean it, do you believe me? In the village, Wang Tiezhu's reputation is much worse than Li Changan's. Li Changan is at most a gangster who likes to play cards and gamble, but Wang Tiezhu is a real bully. I heard that he has a lot of connections in town and county. The villagers looked at Wang Tiezhu, who was coming towards them with great momentum, and did not dare to stop him. Instead, they unconsciously retreated backwards. They regretted it so much in their hearts. If they had cooperated with Li Changan in dividing the meat earlier, they would have left with the bear meat now. That's bear meat. What are you going to do? Don't move. Zhu Yinyu was not a good-tempered person. She immediately shouted and stood in front of the black bear. Li Changan was willing to distribute the bear meat to the villagers. That was Chang'an's decision. But what about Wang Tiezhu coming to rob? Can't you see? Wang Tiezhu was a bully who only cared about the weak. He was much more polite to Zhu Yinyu than to Lin Yuero, but he was not much better. Your family owes me 5 taels of silver. If you understand, get out of here. As he spoke, he raised his hand to push Zhu Yinyu away. Take your dirty hands away. Li Changan whispered. He still held a bow and arrow in his hand, with the sharp arrow pointing at Wang Tiezhu's arm. As long as Wang Tiezhu moved slightly, that thing would be able to penetrate completely. Wang Tiezhu looked at Li Changan in horror. How come this kid is getting bolder day by day? He shuddered, quickly pulled his hand away, and glared at Li Changan. What are you doing? Do you still want to deny your debt in front of so many villagers? Li Changan turned around, looked at the machete Zhu Yinyu had on his waist, and pulled it out with a whoosh. There was still blood on his body and face, and his originally skinny figure was highlighted by the blood, making him look more ferocious. He just raised his hand and swung the knife. Wang Tiezhu was so frightened that he hiccuped, his body stiffened, and he fell down with a stiff spine. He was so frightened that his younger brothers behind him quickly caught the man. Bang! The black bear on the table had its paws broken by a knife. Li Changan picked up the thing and threw it at Wang Tiezhu. 1 bear paw is worth 5 taels of silver, which is more than enough. From today on, our Li family is even with you. How can 1 bear paw be enough? I need at least 4. Wang Tiezhu looked at the bear paws that were bigger than his face, with greed on his face. Someone in this town had sold bear paws before, but the quality of that paw was not as good as this one, and he still sold it for 10 taels of silver. If he couldn't get the whole bear, couldn't he get something else? Click! Li Changan raised his knife and stomped it on the bear's paw again, with such force that the entire blade was halfway sunk into the bear's paw. Try to move one of them. Zhu Yinyu looked at Li Changan's actions, nodded with appreciation, and turned to stare at Wang Tiezhu. It's you who should leave now. We have already paid back the money. Please don't delay me from distributing the meat to the villagers. After hearing this, the villagers behind became a little agitated. Life has not been easy everywhere in recent years. Who wouldn't want this rare opportunity to eat meat? That is. Erguzi glanced at Li Changan, then cleared his throat and huddled behind him. Everyone is still waiting to eat meat. You've already taken the most expensive bear paw, why don't you even let everyone drink the broth? He poked Uzi next to him and said, Daehu, you're right, don't you? People should be reasonable. That's right, get out of the way or I'll beat you up. Uzi also clenched his fists. His parents are also honest people. They usually just farm. They can only crack an egg during the New Year and other festivals to taste the freshness. They finally have meat. Anyway, he would not let Wang Tiezhu take the bear away. After these 2 people spoke up, the rest of the villagers also began to grumble in dissatisfaction. Wang Tiezhu looked at the bear paw on his chest, curled his lips in dissatisfaction, waited twice, rolled his eyes, and shouted to his brothers behind him to leave with an unhappy expression. Chang'an, I'm here, you go first. Zhu Yanyu stretched out her hand and was about to pat Li Changan's shoulder like before, but she found that the blood on Li Changan's shoulder still showed no sign of stopping. Oh my god, I have to go back with you. Your wound needs to be treated with medicine. I remember that the medicine should be placed under my sister's bed. Let's go back. She hurriedly tried to pull Li Changan away, but just as she raised her step, she was blocked by Li Changan. Li Changan glanced at the villagers who were waiting in line again and waiting anxiously. Fourth sister-in-law, you divide the meat here first, and tell them about forming a bear hunting team. I will go back and ask my sister-in-law to help me deal with it. Seeing that Li Changan insisted, Zhu Yanyu didn't say much. After leaving the crowd, Li Changan took a hissing breath, covered his shoulders and walked home. He was lucky this time, as no bones were broken, only some superficial injuries. Sister-in-law. When Li Changan got home, Lin Yuero was not at home yet, but the basket and small hoe in the house were missing. She must have gone to dig wild vegetables nearby. Her body was not as strong as Zhu Yanyu's, so she could only find some wild vegetables and mushrooms in the mountains and around the village to exchange for some small copper coins. Li Changan did not look for anyone, but walked into Lin Yuero's room, lifted the bed curtain and searched for the medicine that Zhu Yanyu mentioned. He felt around for a long time, and suddenly he felt something smooth and soft in his hand. When I pulled it out and looked at it, my face immediately turned red, but before I could put it back. Chang'an. Lin Yuero's voice came from the door. She looked at Li Changan and her face suddenly turned red. She put down the small basket in her hand, trotted to Li Changan, snatched it away and stuffed it into her sleeve. Oh, I said I didn't mean it, do you believe me, sister-in-law? Lin Yuero's face was flushed and she didn't say anything, but when she saw the blood on Li Changan's body, her face turned pale instantly. Chang'an, how did you do this? When she said this, she didn't even bother to wait for Li Changan's answer. She quickly took out a small box of medicine from under the bed and carefully helped Li Changan up. Then he directly pushed open Li Changan's outer shirt. Although Li Changan is thin now, he is a man after all. Lin Yuero is shy by nature, and even though she is rarely tough at this moment, she can't help but blush. Li Changan could feel her breath constantly touching the wound. What is the saying? Pain and happiness. But Wang Tiezhu was not in such a happy mood. He originally wanted to go into the county town to find a good buyer to sell the bear paws, but he was blocked by someone just after he took a few steps into the city. Brother Hey, this is all I have. He held the bear paw in his arms and looked at the two big men in front of him who were as strong as him. Besides, this is what the person who owed me money used to pay off his debt. You said this, at worst you can wait for me to sell it, and I will give you all the remaining money. He didn't dare to offend this black guy. The reason why Wang Tiezhu can act so arrogantly in the village is because of the connections that this Hige has in the big gangs in the county. How could he dare to challenge others? In a word, give it or not. It was obvious that Brother He also beat Wang Tiezhu to death. Seeing that Wang Tiezhu had become mute, he immediately took the bear paw and turned away. Wang Tiezhu watched Brother He walk away, feeling extremely upset. That's a lot of hard-earned money. No. Wang Tiezhu gritted his teeth. I haven't got the money yet, so that guy must compensate me with a few more bear paws. Chapter 8 Sister-in-law got angry. Wang Tiezhu was furious because he was robbed, and Zhu Yanyu was also in a bad mood. Chang'an, the meat has been distributed. I brought back the bear paws and bear skin. I also told them about forming a bear hunting team, but they were all cowards and no one was willing to join. Today's bear meat is a loss, but I can sell it for some money. Zhu Yanyu returned home and just finished complaining when she saw Lin Yuero tying Li Changan's clothes with a red face. She felt relieved. Li Changan said with a smile, "Fourth sister-in-law, calm down. It is natural that they dare not do so. At worst, I can go there by myself later. You are not allowed to go." Lin Yuero's pretty face suddenly darkened, and then she looked at Zhu Yanyu with a complaining look. "Fourth sister-in-law, you too, Chang'an is the only child of our Li family. If you take him to the mountains to hunt, and something bad happens to him, how are we going to explain to my parents-in-law when we get down there?" Lin Yuero has always had a gentle personality, but when she saw the wounds on Li Changan's body, she couldn't help but act out of character and confront Zhu Yanyu. Zhu Yanyu felt a little guilty after being criticized. She lowered her head and even her voice in self-defense was much softer. I didn't know a bear would appear. Li Changan began to comfort Lin Yuero again. Okay, little sister-in-law, don't blame the fourth sister-in-law. There was indeed an accident this time. I promise to be fully prepared next time. Besides, if I don't hunt, I won't be able to help support the family. I'm a grown man, and I can't let you guys work hard outside all the time. Besides, the whereabouts of my eldest and second sisters-in-law are unknown. We have to earn money quickly so that we can go find them. Every word Li Changan said penetrated into Lin Yuero's heart. She also knew that the family had many expenses, but Chang'an was the only male in the Li family and had the responsibility of carrying on the family line. For a moment, the thought in Lin Yuero's heart was ignited again. Seeing Lin Yuero was silent, Zhu Yanyu thought that she had loosened up, and quickly said, "Sister-in-law, Changan is right. Next time we will be fully prepared, and there will definitely be no accidents. Okay, but next time you see a bear or something, you must run away quickly. If something really happens to you, how can your sister-in-law have the face to continue living? Don't worry, little sister-in-law. Even if it's for you, I have to keep myself alive. Otherwise, what if someone bullies you in the future?" A warm feeling surged in Li Changan's heart. In his previous life, he stirred up the business world and had many people around him, but they all had fake faces. Even his family members were worried that they would not get any benefits from him, so they would be servile and say things against their will. He seems to be in a very successful position, but only he knows that he is very lonely. But at this moment, he truly felt the sincerity from others. Even in order to preserve this true love, he must make money quickly, improve everyone's lives, and find his two lost sisters-in-law. Chang'an has grown up, and the sisters-in-law will rely on you, a man, to protect them from now on. Zhu Yanyu smiled and pulled Lin Yuero to the kitchen to cook. They were afraid that if they listened any further, their eyes would start to water. "Brother Chang'an!" From outside came Erguzi's loud shouting. After Li Changan walked out, he asked, "Why did you come to my house instead of eating meat at home?" "Brother Chang'an, this is my family's corn. I sent it to you to thank you." He placed a bag of corn in front of Li Changan. Huzi also reluctantly picked up a small fish from behind, looking quite embarrassed. After all, what they had in their hands was not even on the same level as the bear meat that Li Changan sent. Not only was their weight not comparable, but the quality was as good. Li Changan frowned as he watched them come in so easily, and then he set his eyes on the things they brought. He didn't refuse. There wasn't much to eat at home, and he wasn't one to be falsely polite. "Brother Chang'an, well, we came here this time because we still have something we want to ask you, Huzi, don't you think so?" Erguzi saw Li Changan picking up the things and putting them away, and kicked Huzi several times. Huzi tapped his forehead and moved his lips. "Brother Li, I just want to ask, how did you kill the bear?" After asking, he quickly added another sentence. "I don't want to steal the prey from you. I just want to ask if you can take me with you in the future so that I can help you." Erguzi nodded beside him. That's right, Brother Li, you eat the meat and we just drink the soup. You see, we have been friends for such a long time, right?" "Friendship? Are they friends who do some sneaky things together?" Li Changan raised his eyebrows. But this being said, he is indeed short of manpower around him. Li Changan pondered for a moment, then said, "Okay, I am indeed short of capital, and I need to go into the mountains a few times. As long as you prepare wild honey and pumpkins for me, I can take you with me." According to his memory, bears like to eat these two things, and they are not scarce. After hearing Li Changan's words, Erguzi jumped up instantly and ran out pulling Huzi. "Brother Chang'an! Just wait, we'll get it done right away. Don't worry, we'll definitely get it done for you." Li Changan looked at the two people's receding backs. He did not rush back to their house. Instead, he turned around and spent a long time picking and choosing from the pile of firewood next to him. He then asked Lin Yuero where Zhu Yanyu usually made tools, and then went into their house. All I could hear was a constant clanging and banging noise inside the shed. But no one really knows what Li Changan is doing in there. Even when Lin Yuero tried to peek at the door several times, Li Changan asked her to leave in the name of being careful not to hurt herself. It was not until the evening that Li Changan came out of the shed carrying several large animal traps. "Now that we have the tools, it's up to Erguzi and his friends to get the pumpkin and honey. Li Changan thought about it, then spread the trap on the ground. Everyone in the village knew that there were bear paws and bear skins at home. There is always the possibility that some people with bad intentions might come and steal things. You still have to be on guard. After doing all this, Li Changan yawned and returned to his room. He also didn't sleep all night, and the only reason he was able to hold on until now was thanks to his willpower. However, just when every household blew out their candles, Wang Tiezhu led a group of people to the door of Li Changan's house. When he returned from the county town, he was worried that he would suffer a loss, so he asked a few brothers to follow him. He winked at the younger brothers behind him. Stay here and keep watch. When Li Changan hands over the bear, I'll sell it for the money, and you guys will get some benefits too. Wang Tiezhu gave some instructions and strode towards the Li family. He stood outside the gate of the Li family compound, looked around, and shouted angrily, "Where is Li Changan? Get out here." After saying that, he kicked the gate open and strode inside. I saw a wooden sign in front of me. What is that? Wang Tiezhu looked at the wooden sign in front of him. Under the moonlight, 8 large characters were written crookedly on it. Do not proceed at your own risk. But Wang Tiezhu couldn't read, so he just rolled his eyes again. You sissy, you are just a bunch of sissy. The men they raise are also cowards. He kicked down the wooden sign and walked in aggressively. But suddenly, Wang Tiezhu heard a click sound in his ears and felt a heart-wrenching pain in his feet. Ouch! Chapter 9 Plain Rogue. Wang Tiezhu rolled over and over on the ground holding his left leg. He screamed in pain, and the people outside who were watching the situation were all terrified when they heard it. Wang Tiezhu was bitten by a dog, right? Not really. I didn't hear any dogs barking. Are you stupid? Haven't you heard that a biting dog doesn't bark? Let's go quickly, before we don't make any money and get bitten by a dog again. When everyone heard this, they immediately thought it made sense and they all ran away. And Wang Tiezhu in the yard was already screaming in pain. Suddenly, the lights in the house came on. Li Changan opened the door and saw Wang Tiezhu outside the courtyard gate at a glance. Who? Li Changan took a closer look and said angrily, "Fuck, Wang Tiezhu, you broke into a private house at night, what do you want to do?" He was originally just worried about someone stealing, but he didn't expect to actually catch one. Fortunately, he was careful. When Wang Tiezhu saw Li Changan, he yelled, "Li Changan, you coward, what did you put in the yard?" Li Changan sneered, "What I put in my house is none of your business. But you, according to the laws of my dynasty, you broke into a private house. Even if I beat you to death, your death would be in vain. Stop trying to scare me. Hurry up and bring out all your bear paws, and I'll stop bothering you. Otherwise, I'll make sure you don't survive in this village." Oh, you still dare to be so arrogant. Li Changan moved a chair over and sat down. Then he hooked his middle finger at Wang Tiezhu and said, "Come here, if you come here, I will give you all the bear paws." You, don't go too far. Wang Tiezhu gritted his teeth. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhu Yanyu and Lin Yuero also put on their clothes and walked out. Chang'an, what happened? Lin Yuero asked nervously. Zhu Yanyu looked at Wang Tiezhu on the ground, and immediately became angry. Wang Tiezhu, our previous debt has been written off, what are you doing here again? My bear paw was stolen and I didn't get paid for it, so you have to compensate me with another one. No, you caused me to get hurt today, so you have to compensate me for the rest. At this point, Wang Tiezhu threatened, my brothers are all outside. As long as I yell, they will rush in and break your legs. Do you believe it? Do you believe I'm going to chop you off today? Li Changan ran straight into the kitchen and rushed out with a kitchen knife in hand. Come on, if you don't chop me up, I'll take your surname. Wang Tiezhu was a hooligan to begin with, and he acted like a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. Okay, you said it. Li Changan was about to rush forward, but Lin Yuero quickly pulled him back. Changan, human life is at stake, don't be impulsive. Seeing Zhu Yanyu standing aside and watching the show, Lin Yuero said anxiously, "Fourth sister-in-law, what are you still doing watching? Hurry up and save them." Zhu Yanyu uttered an "oh" and then reluctantly took out the trap on Wang Tiezhu's leg, and wrapped it with a cloth to stop the bleeding. Sister-in-law, don't stop me. To chop off a scoundrel like this is to rid the people of harm. Li Changan acted as if he was ready to die together with the villain. Lin Yuero advised in a low voice, "All right, there's nothing good about his family. If you really kill him, you will definitely have troubles in the future." Zhu Yinyu also knew that she couldn't kill anyone, so she angrily scolded Wang Tiezhu, "What are you looking at? Are you waiting to be stabbed?" Seeing that his brother had not come out for such a long time, Wang Tiezhu felt a little uneasy. Could these bastards just run away? I screamed so miserably just now, there is no reason why they couldn't hear me. Okay, there are more of you today, so wait, all of you wait for me. Wang Tiezhu was a brave man and would not suffer a loss, so he limped away. If you dare to come here again next time, I will chop off 3 of your legs. Stop shouting, the neighbors are asleep. Lin Yuero snatched the kitchen knife from Li Changan's hand and handed it to Zhu Yinyu. We are exiled here. If we can avoid provoking them, then we should. If you are really harmed by them, according to the law, your sister-in-law cannot go to the government to file a complaint. Zhu Yinyu also nodded solemnly, your sister-in-law is right, you still shouldn't be too impulsive. Li Changan felt a sense of powerlessness, just like an old virgin who had been single for more than 30 years. He finally got a beautiful woman to throw herself into his arms, but was unable to solve the problem. Under the persuasion of his 2 sisters-in-law, Li Changan went back to his room and continued to sleep. The next morning, when it was just dawn, Erguzi pulled Hu Zi and secretly climbed over the wall of their yard and ran towards the back mountain. Brother Ergu, I have already given it to Pumpkin, why should I be the one to do something like digging out the beehive? Although Hu Zi is a bit of a fool, he sometimes thinks things through and is somewhat unhappy with the arrangement made by Erguzi for him. Erguzi cleared his throat and looked at Hu Zi seriously. We are working for Brother Chang'an, are you unwilling? I just thought that if you work harder, Brother Chang'an will value you more. We are brothers, I have to consider you. Hu Zi scratched his forehead again and felt that it made sense. He bowed and apologized to Erguzi with some guilt. Erguzi naturally pretended not to care and fooled Hu Zi a few more times. The 2 then headed towards the beehive they found yesterday. Half an incense stick later, the 2 of them came under a big tree, and a beehive as big as a human head was hanging above their heads. The fresh wild honey made the 2 of them drool. Hu Zi, go and take the honey off of it. Erguzi's eyes lit up and he quickly patted Hu Zi's shoulder. Good. Hu Zi took a deep breath, and with the help of Erguzi, he carefully climbed to the top of the tree. But Erguzi was cautious and moved back quietly. Hu Zi slowly crawled under the hive, surrounded by the constant buzzing of bees. He wrapped the cloth on his body and hands more tightly, and then slapped the beehive. Buzz. In an instant, the bees in the hive rushed out. Fuck, so many wasps. Erguzi widened his eyes. When they came to see it yesterday, there were only a few of them. But he couldn't care about all that at the moment. Erguzi ran away, leaving Hu Zi there. Hu Zi jumped down from the tree, picked up the beehive and ran away. So reckless. Fuck. You really have a problem with your brain. Throw it away and run away. Erguzi ran faster and faster, but Hu Zi ran even faster with the beehive in his arms and was about to catch up with him in a blink of an eye. No, Brother Li wants honey, you have to bring it back to him. You. Erguzi was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. But he didn't have time to scold him. He only had one thought in his mind, to quickly run to the river and jump in to escape danger. On their way, Wang Tiezhu was riding a donkey cart heading towards the city. His left leg was seriously injured and had become festered. The village doctor couldn't cure it, so he had to find a donkey cart to go to the county town to see a doctor. Damn you Li Changan, just wait for me. Wang Tiezhu was muttering to himself, and when he looked up he saw Hu Zi and Erguzi running towards him. They are both in a panic. Did someone die in their family? As Wang Tiezhu was thinking about this, the old man driving the car suddenly changed his face and looked extremely panicked. Run! Without caring about Wang Tiezhu who was in the car, he jumped out of the car and ran into the woods next to it. Chapter 10 is also a burden. Not to mention the old man, even the donkey brayed twice, dropped the cartboard, and ran behind the old man at a very fast speed. Wang Tiezhu was in pain all over due to the falling donkey cart and he was so angry that he started cursing. You damn old bastard, what the hell are you doing? It's not like I don't want to pay you. How am I going to leave now? He was worried about his legs, and when he looked up, he saw Erguzi and another man running towards him. His eyes rolled immediately. It was hard to say about the other people, but how about that idiot Huzi? Couldn't he just fool him a few words and send him into the city? Wang Tiezhu now felt relieved. He leaned on the donkey cart and waved at the two people. Fuck, I've never seen anyone so unlucky. Erguzi saw Wang Tiezhu from a distance and thought to himself that something was wrong. Everyone saw Wang Tiezhu causing trouble for his brother Chang'an yesterday morning. Who knows what bad things he is up to now? He ran faster and faster. Seeing Wang Tiezhu stretching his legs to stop him, he actually jumped over him and ran away without looking back. Wang Tiezhu's main target was not Erguzi. Seeing Erguzi running fast, he became more alert. When Huzi came over, he hugged Huzi's calf around the waist. Huzi, why are you following him? Seeing that he had stopped Huzi, Wang Tiezhu smiled happily and said, Erguzi and his friends have no money and no skills. You have to follow me, your brother. Wang Tiezhu patted the cart as he spoke. Come here, help me drag it into the city, I'll show you some new things. Huzi admits that he is not smart, but he can still distinguish right from wrong. Seeing Wang Tiezhu opening and closing his mouth while talking, he scratched his head. What bullshit are you talking about? I don't understand a word of it. After saying that, he touched the beehive he was holding. The image of Wang Tiezhu trying to snatch the bear suddenly appeared in his mind, and he gritted his teeth. Brother Li is a good person. He didn't even help Brother Li kill the bear, but Brother Li still gave so much bear meat to his family. Anyone who makes things difficult for Brother Li is definitely making things difficult for him. Thinking of this, the anger on Huzi's face suddenly emerged. He looked at Wang Tiezhu, suddenly frowned, and reluctantly took out a large piece of honey from the hive. Then he stuffed the hive into Wang Tiezhu's arms and ran away without looking back. Tiger! Tiger! Wang Tiezhu shouted twice but failed to stop Huzi, and he became angry. What a fool he is! He deserves to be punished. He spat several times on the ground beside him, then looked down at what was in his arms. What are you holding for so long? Wang Tiezhu untied the clothes that wrapped the thing in surprise, and a beehive rolled out from the clothes. Hastily. Instantly, a buzzing sound arose. Wang Tiezhu dragged his crippled leg and turned to run, but after struggling on the cart for a long time, he was no different from a dead fish and could not even move half a meter. A swarm of bees rushed over aggressively and hung in the air. They looked at Wang Tiezhu, desperately looking for his weaknesses, trying to take back their hive. Finally, they looked between Wang Tiezhu's tightly clamped legs. They clamped it so tightly, maybe they were hiding some honey and didn't he want them to find it, otherwise why would so much of their honey be gone? All the bees hit their target and rushed towards Wang Tiezhu's lower body. Fuck! At this time, Huzi also walked to the gate of Li's courtyard with honey. He scratched his ears and looked in the direction of the forest in surprise. Did someone scream over there just now? You heard wrong. Erguzi said as he cleared his throat, pushed open the gate, and stood at the door respectfully. Brother Chang'an, we brought pumpkin and honey. Li Changan came out with half-closed eyes, lazily pulled the rope beside him, untied the mechanism in the yard, and then invited the two people in. Erguzi came running in happily, and naturally couldn't help bragging about how hard it was for him to find these things. Li Changan looked at him with a smile, pointed at the blisters on Huzi's face, then pointed at the scattered red spots on Erguzi's face, without saying anything more. How did the bee sting like this? Erguzi said awkwardly, Brother Chang'an, this wasp eats honey, isn't it a coincidence today? Li Changan got some medicine from Lin Yuero and applied it to the two of them. You two are so lucky. You stole some honey and met a wasp that came to eat the honey. Look at your faces. TSK. Huzi sat down carefree, tilting his head back and waiting for Li Changan to apply medicine. When Li Changan finished painting, he saw Erguzi still standing there stupidly. Come quickly. You will have to help me carry the stuff to the mountain. After we kill the bear and sell the silver, I will share it with you. Erguzi pointed at himself in a daze and said, Brother Chang'an, are you willing to share the money with us? You don't want it. Li Changan raised his eyebrows. Erguzi immediately smiled happily. Thank you, Brother Chang'an. After applying the medicine, Erguzi stopped being lazy and he and Huzi picked up everything on the ground, leaving only the bow and arrow for Li Changan. They happily walked in front carrying the things. When the two men reached the door, they saw Widow Zhang standing under a tree not far outside the yard, looking around. Is Widow Zhang here to look for someone? Zi was scratching his head and was about to turn around and call for the Li family to come out when Zi pulled him hard. People are here quietly to look for Brother Chang'an. Stop making a fuss. Let's go to the bottom of the mountain and wait. Let Brother Chang'an handle it himself. As he spoke, he winked at Li Changan, who had not yet left the house, and then he slipped away with Zi, not daring to stay for even a moment. Does he dare to disturb Brother Chang'an's romantic affair? It's really hard to see you, Brother Chang'an, if you don't leave the house all day. Widow Zhang noticed the commotion, twisted her waist and walked over, leaning against the courtyard gate, blocking Li Changan's way. Li Changan did not expect that this widow would come to find him out of the blue. Logically speaking, there was really no intersection between him and the widow Zhang. At most, he would occasionally pass by the widow Zhang's door when he was playing cards in the village. The next time was when we were distributing bear meat. We had a direct encounter, but that was it. Mrs. Zhang, what's the matter? When Widow Zhang heard Li Changan calling her like that, her face first turned red, then she returned to normal and slowly raised her eyes to look at Li Changan. Look at you, why are you calling me so unfamiliarly? Can't I come to see you if I have nothing to do? As he spoke, there was a hint of anger in his eyes. Li Changan curled his lips and looked away. Seeing that Li Changan ignored her, Widow Zhang simply lay down on the courtyard gate and leaned her body against it. However, the gate was unable to hold her and opened by itself with 2 creaks. Chapter 11. The matchmaker arrives. Widow Zhang cried out and fell towards Li Changan. As they were from the same village, Li Changan didn't want to watch her fall, so he lent her a hand. But who would have thought that this widow would climb up the pole and even fall into his arms? She squinted her eyes and leaned on Li Changan. It's hard to live without a wife at home, right? Sister Zhang, just tell me what you want to do. Li Changan also breathed heavily. He was already feeling uncomfortable early in the morning, and after what she did, he was really a little distracted. Widow Zhang laughed, released her hands to cover her mouth, and kept blinking at Li Changan. I just think that Brother Chang'an is amazing, much better than other men in the village, and he sent so much meat to my family, so I want to invite Brother Chang'an to my house for a meal and taste my cooking skills. And Brother Chang'an also knows that taxes will be levied soon, and my family's land has not been confiscated yet. Brother Chang'an, can you also help me? Don't worry, I won't ask you for help in vain. Li Changan remained expressionless, and looked at Widow Zhang as she raised the bow and arrow in her hand. Mrs. Zhang, you see, I still have to go hunting. I'll ask Zi and Zi to help you tomorrow. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Changan didn't give Widow Zhang time to react and walked away in big strides. Widow Zhang was so angry that she kept stamping her feet on the spot. Brickhead. Who wants Zi and the others to help? Do I need those men? What she lacks is someone like Li Changan. Anyway, she definitely can't do it on her own. Widow Zhang rolled her eyes, took out a thin silver bracelet from her bag, and walked away with her waist twisted. Trapping a black bear is not an easy task. Li Changan will be gone for 2 or 3 days. In the past, when Li Changan went out to gamble or play cards, he would never come back for 2 or 3 days. Logically, Lin Yuero should have been used to it. But bear hunting is such a dangerous thing. Little sister, just sit down. I've stayed in the mountains for several days before. Maybe Chang'an just hasn't waited for the black bear to come out yet. Why are you in such a hurry? Zhu Yinyu looked at Lin Yuero, who kept circling in front of her, and couldn't help but push her down on the chair. You said it yourself. Chang'an is much more mature now. He will definitely not act rashly. Besides, including Chang'an, there were 3 people who went there. If there was any problem, someone would have come back to report it long ago. After being scolded by Zhu Yinyu, Lin Yuero sat dejectedly on the chair without saying a word. My heart is full of worries. At this moment, there was a series of knocks on the door outside the courtyard. Before the 2 women got up to open the door, the fat lady in a red robe and a red flower on her head walked in, crying out, ouch, ouch, and not waiting for anyone to greet her. Her fat body was squeezed on the small wooden chair, and the chair creaked a few times under the weight. His familiar look stunned the 2 sisters-in-law. Who are you? Lin Yuero held Zhu Yinyu's palm and looked at the old lady in surprise. The old lady finished drinking the water and wiped her mouth. My last name is Wang, and I'm the matchmaker from the next village. You should have heard of me, right? Among all the villages around here, I'm the one who makes the most and best matches. Matchmaker? Zhu Yinyu stood up immediately. We won't remarry. Matchmaker Huang waved a handkerchief to cover up her displeasure and spoke with a smile. Don't worry, I'm not here to matchmake you two. As for me, I'm here to act as a matchmaker for your bachelor brother-in-law. As Matchmaker Huang spoke, she put a thin silver bracelet on the table and said, Someone wants to marry your brother-in-law. Not only does she not want a betrothal gift, she is also willing to give a few acres of land and silver as a dowry. This can be considered as sincerity. Do you think this is a good thing? Lin Yuero's eyes lit up. In this way, isn't there hope for continuing the family line? She looked at Matchmaker Huang and asked, Where are you from? Is your family clean? Can you read and write? If you can't read, it would be okay if you can play the piano, chess, or paint. Oh, look at what you said, is it decent? Matchmaker Huang was stunned by Lin Yuero's question. She curled her lips and said, Why do we need a weak wife? A strong body, good childbearing ability, and the ability to work in the fields are the most important. I won't hide it from you either. Matchmaker Huang glanced at the two of them and continued, I came here this time to help the widow Zhang at the entrance of the village to find a match. If you don't like her, I have other options. Zhao area from our village, although she looks a bit clumsy and not very pretty, is a good worker and can plow 2 acres of land by herself. And Hunyo, even though she's been married and has had a child, it proves that she can give birth. And the baby she gave birth to before was a boy. If your brother-in-law marries her, then you don't have to worry about her retirement. As for widow Zhang, she may look a little bit weird, but she is also willing to work hard and give money. She doesn't even expect your family to give her money. Your family is so poor, isn't it convenient? She sighed and said, It's only because your uncle is so good that he can kill bears, otherwise he wouldn't be able to get a chance to fight with the good families in the village. This, Matchmaker Huang, right? I'm sorry, but I'm afraid this person isn't the right one. I'm sorry you've come all this way in vain. Lin Yuero rubbed her eyebrows and said softly. If the parents-in-law in heaven knew that they had found an ignorant village woman for Li Changan, how will they have the face to see them in the future? Matchmaker Huang's face looked extremely ugly. These are all the good connections carefully selected by Huang the matchmaker. If they were in the village, who wouldn't he be vying for them? She looked at Lin Yuero for a few times, and suddenly snorted and laughed. Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you were some wealthy lady in town. You are so poor, and you still take advantage of Qiao. You. Zhu Yinyu had been holding back her anger from the beginning, and she slammed the table when she heard that. Lin Yuero stopped her and said softly to Matchmaker Huang, Marriage is a major event in life and one should be very selective. If Matchmaker Huang finds a suitable candidate in the future, we would be willing to raise more money to thank her. But it is not appropriate at the moment. She spoke gently, but Matchmaker Huang didn't like it. Instead, she spoke in a rather sarcastic tone. As for the candidate you just mentioned, there is not even one in the whole town. You are not deliberately trying to find a wife for your brother-in-law, right? After Matchmaker Huang finished speaking, her eyes rolled around, she stared at the two women, and suddenly laughed. Oh, I thought so. It seems that she wants to save the good food for herself. She is good at hunting, so her body is probably stronger than that of ordinary men. Add to that her uncle and his sister-in-law, how exciting it is. Lin Yuero's cheeks turned pale instantly when she was reminded of what happened 2 days ago. Zhu Yinyu, on the other hand, jumped up in anger. What nonsense are you talking about? Get out. Zhu Yinyu was from a prominent family after all, and was the daughter-in-law of the Zhengguo mansion. When she got angry, she was naturally majestic. Matchmaker Huang was startled and ran outside quickly. She didn't start shouting until she reached the outside of the yard. What's wrong with you? You're eating alone. You don't find a wife for your brother-in-law. You must have done a lot of dirty things behind the scenes. I say you guys shouldn't be so selfish. Brother Chang'an is so strong. You guys sleep well at night. Give other young wives a chance to experience it. Seeing that Matchmaker Huang's words were getting more and more unpleasant, Zhu Yinyu could not bear it any longer and rushed out with her fists clenched. If Lin Yuero had not stopped her in time, she would have almost punched Matchmaker Huang. You still want to hit me? You are coveting your brother-in-law, and I got it right. Are you angry and embarrassed? I think you might steal your brother-in-law's clothes in the middle of the night, hide under the quilt, and touch me and I touch you, so intimate. Everyone come and see, the uncle and his wife are committing adultery. Chapter 12, Indecent. Come and have a look. The sister-in-law wanted to sleep with her brother-in-law, but she was found out and she beat him up here. Matchmaker Wang is indeed quite famous in several nearby villages. After she made such a fuss, many people came out of their homes and looked at the Li family in surprise. Zhu Yinyu was already furious, and now when she heard the matchmaker Wang chattering on, her anger grew even more. What are you talking about here? If you keep talking nonsense like this, I'll smash your mouth. Matchmaker Wang was beaten up now, so she threw herself into a rage and yelled at the people around her, "Hit me, hit me. The more you hit me, the more guilty you feel. You two women are simply crazy." Zhu Yinyu was so angry that her face turned red. She didn't know whether to raise her fist or not. Lin Yuero, who was originally trying to stop her, had red eyes and looked a little aggrieved. Naturally, more and more people gathered around and were also concerned about the news. In this village, gossip spread the fastest, except for other things that spread quickly. After a while, most people in the village came. Matchmaker Wang became more and more confident. She put one hand on her waist and pointed at Zhu Yinyu and the other woman. "Everyone, please judge for yourself. Their husbands are dead and they don't love themselves. Why do you dominate them and not allow them to find wives and get married?" Seeing that the situation was getting more and more serious, Widow Zhang in the crowd became a little anxious. If she marries into the Li family in the future, she will have to become sisters-in-law with these two sisters-in-law. How can she live with Li Changan when matchmaker Huang makes things so ugly? What's happening between my uncle and his sister-in-law isn't that uncommon. It would be fine as long as they don't get married. At worst we can think of a solution after she gets married. Why make such a fuss? She couldn't let Li Changan hate her before she even got married. Widow Zhang stamped her feet, turned around and ran towards the forest without caring about anything else. The weather was still a little hot at the beginning of autumn. Widow Zhang jogged all the way. Her thin shirt was already wet with sweat and stuck to her body, outlining her figure in exquisite detail. As soon as Li Changan came down the mountain, he saw such a vivid scene. "Brother Chang'an." Widow Zhang was delighted when she saw Li Changan. Then she noticed that Li Changan had taken off his shirt and was walking towards them with the black bear on his shoulder. Li Changan's body has not recovered yet and he is still a little thin, but his masculinity cannot be concealed. She bit her lip and looked at the bear hanging on Li Changan's arm, her heart pounding. "What's wrong, Sister Zhang?" It was not until Li Changan spoke that Widow Zhang came to her senses. She took 2 steps forward and leaned weakly on Li Changan's body. "Your sister-in-law had an argument with someone. I was afraid that she would be bullied, so I hurried to inform you." As she spoke, she reached out her hand and touched Li Changan's upper body. "I came all this way just for you." "What? Ergu, Huzi, send Mrs. Zhang back." Unexpectedly, as soon as she said this, Li Changan pushed her out and walked towards the village at full speed, carrying the bear on his back. At this time, there was a lot of noise in front of Li's house. Matchmaker Huang put her hands on her hips and kept shouting. The 2 women stood among the crowd, their expressions showing how aggrieved they were. "What are you doing?" Li Changan's voice sounded from behind. Everyone turned around and saw Li Changan carrying another bear back. They couldn't help but gasp. It's only been a few days. Is Li Changan really possessed by some god recently? Matchmaker Huang's eyes lit up. "Oh." She raised her voice very early, and squeezed out of the crowd waving a handkerchief in her hand. She kept circling around Li Changan, staring at the bear with her eyes, and kept shouting. "This is Brother Chang'an, right? Look at this physique, and then look at this bear. Oh, no wonder everyone in our village has heard of your reputation. Many young girls and sisters-in-law are vying to be your wife. If I were a dozen years younger, I might also want to marry you." She talked on and on. Li Changan frowned and didn't listen to her at all. He walked to Lin Yuero and the other girl in 2 or 3 steps and became much more gentle. "What happened?" Putting aside other things, just based on the sincerity of his 2 sisters-in-law towards him, he cannot bear to see anyone bullying his sisters-in-law. Who knew that before Lin Yuero could even open her mouth in grievance, the matchmaker Huang rushed over shouting. "Brother Chang'an, it would be better if you didn't say anything. Once you said it, I was really furious." She was full of fat, her face was as white as a sesame cake, and her pitiful appearance was enough to make people's stomachs churn. "You said that I would introduce you to a wife, so everyone who saw her would say it was a great thing, right? Your sisters-in-law looked down on this one and that one. I think these two little devils look like troublemakers. I'm afraid they don't have any good intentions towards you. They might even want to keep you by their side for the rest of your life. I'll tear your mouth off. Zhu Yinyu was so angry that she couldn't speak. She stepped forward and was about to attack. Lin Yuero was afraid that someone would die, so she quickly hugged her waist and said to Huang the matchmaker, according to the law, those who spread rumors must have their tongues cut off. Oh, you're trying to scare me. Whether you are right or not is up to you. This beautiful woman has a vicious heart. Everyone knows that. She looks like this, but she still stays here and won't leave. Who can't tell that she has ulterior motives? Matchmaker Huang spoke to the surrounding villagers in a sarcastic tone. Seeing this, the villagers also fell silent and looked at the two women suspiciously. These two widowed sisters-in-law are so charming, and Li Changan is also a young man full of vigor and vitality. They are so passionate and hot-tempered. Li Changan suddenly grabbed Lin Yuero, who was shaking with anger, and looked at Matchmaker Huang calmly. Matchmaker, huh? Don't tell me, I've actually seen you before. Matchmaker Huang came up to him immediately, nodded vigorously, and said with a smile, Brother Chang'an, I am the best matchmaker around here. It's not surprising that you have met me. Just tell me what kind of person you like, and I will match you up right away. No, I saw you in the mountains. Li Changan looked around and continued, maybe you don't know, this matchmaker Huang rode on a black wild boar in the mountains on a dark and windy night. At first I thought it was two fat pigs mating, but when I walked closer I saw. It's matchmaker, you're riding on a big-bellied old man. Boom. As soon as these words came out, people around cast horrified and surprised looks at matchmaker Huang. It's so shameless to go to the mountains and do that kind of thing with others. The smile on matchmaker Huang's face froze. You can't keep talking nonsense for your sister-in-law. How could I do that? Li Changan shouted, pointing at matchmaker Huang with a smile, this is nonsense, and I saw you with more than one person. Half a year ago, I went into the mountains to look for my fourth sister-in-law, and I saw you with 3 old men. Hey! It's immoral. You! Matchmaker Huang stuck out her neck, her fat trembling, and she gasped for breath. You bastard Li Changan, I'm going to tear your mouth apart. Matchmaker Huang was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. She screamed and pounced on Li Changan. Chapter 13 What taxes? The fat around matchmaker Huang did not hinder her movements at all. She pounced forward like a wolf or a tiger, ready to attack with her fangs and claws bared. Seeing that the nails were about to scratch Li Changan's face, Zhu Yinyu, who was standing beside him, couldn't bear it anymore. You dare to attack my Chang'an right in front of me? Do you really want to get rid of your claws? She rushed forward and kicked matchmaker Huang to the ground. Matchmaker Huang held her belly in pain, lying on the ground howling and kicking her legs. I am going to die. The uncle and the sister-in-law are bullying the matchmaker together. I wonder who will dare to introduce a daughter-in-law to you in the future. Pay compensation. You must pay compensation. Pay me 20 taels of silver, or this matter will not end. You. Zhu Yinyu clenched his fists tightly. Li Changan walked forward calmly, leaning down slightly, and bringing his ferocious bare head closer to matchmaker Huang's face. If I were you, I would get out of here as far as I can. After all, if I get angry, killing a person should be easier than killing a bear. Even if you take the money, you have to bring it home alive. On their way back between the two villages, you have to pass through the mountains and forests. The ferocious bear head was staring with its eyes wide open and its fangs bared, almost about to hit matchmaker Huang in the face. Matchmaker Huang was indeed dismissive. But when she saw Li Changan's calm eyes, which did not change their expression from beginning to end, she suddenly felt extremely frightened. Too calm. Li Changan said this in an absolutely calm state, he would really do it. You just wait. Matchmaker Huang shuddered, quickly climbed up on all fours, and ran away stumbling. Li Changan looked at her back, smiled and said loudly again, Matchmaker, don't forget to take care of your lover in the mountains on the way back, have some fun. The people around also started laughing, and the air was filled with a happy atmosphere. Zhu Yinyu snorted, glared at the matchmaker Huang who was leaving with clenched fists, then turned around and pulled the still listless Lin Yuero into their house. Li Changan frowned, said goodbye to the villagers who came up to him and wanted to be polite, and followed them into the yard. Many people looked at the black bear on Li Changan's back with regret, and smacked their lips in displeasure. It is definitely impossible to say that he was not greedy for the bear meat, but he couldn't just shamelessly ask Li Changan for it. But the bear hunting team is really dangerous. No matter how greedy they are, they won't risk their lives to beg for it. Li Changan naturally didn't know what the villagers were thinking. He put the black bear on his body in the next room and went to look for the two women. Lin Yuero was crying in the room, and Zhu Yanyu also looked unhappy. She patted Lin Yuero's back and gritted her teeth. It's all my fault for not being good at talking, otherwise I wouldn't have been bullied by that bitch. I wish I could beat her to pieces. As he spoke, Zhu Yanyu felt somewhat guilty. I'm always in the mountains, I didn't know your life in the village was so difficult. For Zhu Yanyu, dealing with the wild game in the mountains is more enjoyable and refreshing than dealing with Wang the matchmaker. Hearing her say this, Lin Yuero hurriedly wiped away her tears, and held Zhu Yanyu's hand again, saying sincerely, "Fourth sister, that's not true. I can't farm or hunt, and I'm spoiled. It's only because of you and third sister's hard work that we can support the family. If you keep saying this, aren't you deliberately embarrassing me?" Nonsense. If you hadn't taken care of the house, we wouldn't have dared to go out without worry. The two women comforted each other. Lin Yuero was just about to let the matter go when she happened to notice Li Changan, who had approached her. She couldn't help but sigh uncomfortably, feeling extremely guilty. Today, Chang'an, you have worked so hard. You finally brought the bear back, but before you could catch your breath, you encountered something like this. It's because of your incompetence that you couldn't have a good rest. Zhu Yanyu muttered to herself when she heard this. If my eldest sister were here, she would have dealt with this kind of shrew long ago. There would be no need for Chang'an to take action. Asking a man like Chang'an to deal with a shrew. After listening to Zhu Yanyu's words, Li Changan vaguely remembered his sister-in-law Jiang Bingyun. The days before seemed like a lifetime ago in his memory, too far away, but his sister-in-law Jiang Bingyun was like a blazing fire, and became particularly striking as long as he recalled it. In Jingguo Mansion, Jiang Bingyun has always been the one responsible for handling internal and external affairs. She comes from a family of military generals, but has also been raised as a lady from an aristocratic family since childhood, so she can be said to be both literary and martial. If it is really used to deal with matchmakers, it would be like using a cannon to attack a mosquito. Don't worry, fourth sister-in-law. I will make money as soon as possible and bring my eldest and second sisters-in-law back. Then we will be reunited as a family. He placed his hand on Zhu Yanyu's shoulder and patted her twice. Li Changan couldn't bear to see the two of them spend too much time in such sadness, so he sat in front of the two women and said with a smile, "Look, I killed another bear. Once we finish dealing with it, we can take it to the county town to exchange for money." I think so too. Chang'an is very capable now. It won't be long before we can find our elder sister and second sister back. Zhu Yanyu was carefree to begin with, and after being comforted by Li Changan, she immediately started to smile. Now that Li Changan has his own abilities and has settled down, he is no longer as foolish as he used to be. His future is bright. Zhu Yanyu turned her head and looked at Lin Yuero. "I will go and help clean up later. If you can't stand seeing such blood, then don't go. You can help collect the money after selling it. When we have enough money, we can go and pick up the people." Ahem. Li Changan coughed. "I still need to come up with some money to survive the winter. But it doesn't matter. I think there are still bears in the mountains. I can hunt a few more when the time comes." "No." Lin Yuero frowned. "Bear hunting is too dangerous. The last two times were urgent matters. I think Chang'an can't take such risks in the future. No amount of money is more important than Chang'an's life." Li Changan was just about to say something to comfort Lin Yuero when he saw that Lin Yuero was frowning, so he spoke again. "Besides, the money from bear hunting is not enough to pay the tax after the autumn harvest." She looked pale and held her forehead with her hand, as if she had a headache. Zhu Yanyu blinked, looking confused. "Why haven't I heard of it? Besides, even if there is a tax, our family doesn't farm or do business. At most, we can pay a few taels of grain tax. How can the money for hunting bears not be enough?" What Lin Yuero said was obviously not in line with previous rules. Even Zhu Yanyu didn't know, let alone Li Changan. One of them stayed in the mountains for a long time, while the other was always outside playing cards and drinking. Naturally, one was more confused than the other. "Don't be impatient, sister-in-law. Let's first listen to what sister-in-law is talking about." Li Changan was much calmer. He looked at Lin Yuero and reached out to hold her soft and slender hand. Don't worry, if there is anything, I will find a way. Chapter 14. Farming is the real business. Lin Yuero looked at the confusion on their faces, let out a long breath, and spoke slowly. It's not normal, but this is indeed the news spread by the petty officials in the county. Some time ago, they came to announce that after the autumn harvest, not only will the land tax double, but also the head tax, food tax, and clothing tax. In short, the total amount is probably several times that of previous years. Following Lin Yuero's words, Zhu Yanyu stood up suddenly. Is the boss crazy? Isn't this excessive taxation? Is he going to force all his subordinates to death, or what? Lin Yuero was shocked and quickly stood up to cover Zhu Yanyu's mouth. Keep your voice down. With our current identities, if someone finds out we are saying such things, wouldn't that be adding insult to injury? Zhu Yanyu grumbled twice in dissatisfaction, and only muttered softly until Lin Yuero let go of her. There are only 3 of us here, what are we afraid of? It's just. Lin Yuero looked at her again, and Zhu Yanyu quickly covered her mouth and stopped saying anything. From beginning to end, Li Changan was standing aside in deep thought and did not say much. Given their current situation, they cannot influence the matters above them, so the best way is to try to deal with the matter as much as possible. But in the current situation, just as Lin Yuero said, even if they hunted all the bears in the forest, it might not be enough to pay their families' taxes. Not to mention those who farm in the village. He who has silver will always have silver. On the contrary, the lower class will become less and less wealthy with each generation. Li Changan touched his chin. So, if you want to get money, you still have to start from the top. Most beautiful things are not durable, colorful clouds are easily dispersed, and glass is fragile. Li Changan muttered to himself, and then his eyes lit up. From ancient times to the present, all the upper classes, regardless of gender, have liked those gorgeous and exquisite gadgets. Perhaps he could use his experience from his past life to create something that wasn't available right now. Don't worry, my 2 sisters-in-law. I have a plan. Leave the tax matters to me. After Li Changan said this, he stood up and walked out. Lin Yuero was so anxious that she tried to stop him, but she only saw Li Changan's back. She was extremely anxious. Is Chang'an going to go into the mountains to hunt bears again? That would be a lot of bears. The risk is too great. Something will happen sooner or later. On the contrary, Zhu Yanyu, who used to be extremely impatient, was calmer. Zhu Yanyu pointed at the bow and arrow that Li Changan had placed behind the door and said, "You are so anxious that you are confused. Look, he didn't bring any traps or bows and arrows. How could he have run into the mountains?" Lin Yuero finally breathed a sigh of relief, but then frowned in annoyance. If she had known this earlier, she would not have told this matter. She also didn't know what risk Li Changan was going to take. It is impossible to take risks. Li Changan knocked on Erguzi's door. Erguzi, as usual, climbed out from the wall stealthily and went to greet Hu Zi. The 3 of them walked to the entrance of the village together before he dared to speak. "Brother Chang'an, you don't know. When my parents heard that I was hanging out with you, they were so angry that they even told me how many bears I could kill. I think they just don't understand." Erguzi kept muttering to himself to express his loyalty. Li Changan stretched out his hand to signal him to be quiet, and called Hu Zi, who had been standing solemnly beside him. "Next, I won't go bear hunting." Hu Zi nodded honestly. Erguzi jumped up immediately like a wild dog whose tail was pulled. "Not going to hunt bears? Then what are we going to do? Did someone say something gossipy about you, Brother Chang'an? I'll go and take care of him." He thought of Wang Tiezhu and gritted his teeth. "It's Wang Tiezhu, right? I saw that kid in the mountains a few days ago, and he hasn't come out since. He must be up to something bad." Seeing how excited he was, Li Changan couldn't help but smile and shake his head. "No, I have other plans." Li Changan called 2 people over, naturally for this matter. Erguzi didn't even wait for him to speak, and immediately expressed his own opinion. "So that's how it is, then we should continue to follow Brother Chang'an, right?" He stretched out his arms and kept fiddling with Hu Zi, asking Hu Zi to follow suit and express his attitude. Those 2 people speaking together will be more convincing than him speaking alone. Hu Zi looked at Erguzi blankly and scratched his head. "Brother Li said he wants to use us, so we should follow Brother Li." If Brother Li can't use us, then there is no need to cause trouble for Brother Li. This idiot. For the first time, Erguzi felt that the two in his name should be given to Huzi. Although he didn't know what Li Changan was going to do next, Li Changan was much more capable than them. He had just got down from the card table and beat 2 bears. There is a bear, and he and Huzi can get a share of the spoils. Even a fool would know to hold onto Li Changan, this golden thigh, right? Of course I'm asking you for help. Li Changan smiled, patted Huzi on the shoulder, and looked at Erguzi. Don't worry, as long as you follow me and work hard, I can help you solve the tax problems for your family in the future. Wow. Erguzi straightened his back immediately. His parents are still worried about this matter these days. Brother Chang'an was very arrogant, but he just believed it. When this matter is over, he will be able to walk around the house arrogantly. Then we will see if his parents will scold him for not doing his job properly. You said this, of course, Brother Chang'an, we will do whatever you say. Taxes are just a small matter. If you want to help, then help. It doesn't matter. Erguzi patted his chest, looking very loyal. Huzi didn't understand Erguzi's flattery, and after holding it in for a long time, he said, "Me too." Li Changan laughed out loud when he heard this. Then he said, "Come on, you have to find me some mud first so I can build a kiln." Li Changan had already planned what to do. Based on his experience in his previous life, many people have had a special liking for glass since a long time ago. As long as he can make colored glaze, there will always be people who will pay for it. He has memories of his past life, so naturally he has no shortage of prescriptions. Where are you going? At this moment, several sinister voices came from behind the 3 people. Huzi and Erguzi had no time to react before they were grabbed by the ears by the people behind them and dragged several steps away from Li Changan. All you do all day is fool around with Li Changan. If you don't know him, you'd think he's your dad. Erguzi's father cursed in dissatisfaction. In order to catch these 2 guys, he also brought Huzi's parents along. He can fight bears, but that's a life-threatening job. If you follow him, you're risking your lives, right? Erguzi cried out in pain and quickly explained himself, "We are not going to hunt bears now. We have other things to do, a big business." Bar. Just Li Changan? What big business do you expect him to do? Do you want to go out and gamble on a big business? Erguzi's father seemed to be very angry. "I don't agree. Don't hang out with people like him. Go home and farm. That's the serious business." Chapter 15, Seeking an audience with the county magistrate. Such great wealth is right before his eyes. How could Erguzi let him run away, even if his biological father came to save him? "Dad, you can only make a few bucks by farming. You know the current situation. You have to follow our brother Chang'an to make money. If you don't understand, just say less. What if this makes Li Changan angry and he really doesn't work with me?" Who knew that Wang Tiezhu would sneer and speak mercilessly, with a hint of sourness? What future does he have? Isn't he just good at hunting bears? There are only a few bears in the mountains. How long can he hunt them? Only farming is a down-to-earth and serious way to live. After taking Li Changan's bear meat, Wang Tiezhu didn't say anything too harsh. But the 3 words, unreliable, were clearly visible in his eyes. As for Huzi's parents, they were also simple and honest people. After holding it in for a long time, they couldn't utter anything. They just kept nodding behind Wang Tiezhu. Father. Erguzi was usually suppressed violently by his parents at home, and he didn't have the courage to completely disobey them. He was so anxious that he didn't know how to explain to Wang Tiezhu. "Anyway, no matter what, I want to follow Brother Chang'an. Huzi, don't you agree?" He gritted his teeth and pushed Huzi again. Huzi nodded and spoke more forcefully than Erguzi. "Whatever Brother Li does is right." The two's behavior obviously made their parents very angry. "How much money can he give you if you keep following him like this? You don't even listen to your parents, so you don't have to go home in the future," Wang Tiezhu said angrily. Seeing that the situation was about to get to the point where both sets of parents would sever ties with Erguzi and Huzi, Li Changan could no longer sit idly by. It's not the autumn harvest season yet. Before the autumn harvest, the things I asked Erguzi and Huzi to do will definitely be completed and will not delay the harvest. Afterwards, I will give them enough money as compensation for their help during this period of time. How do you think? In order to make things clear to both sets of parents, Li Changan patiently explained for a long time. When Wang Tiezhu heard the word money, his eyes lit up, but he quickly stared at Li Changan again. If you could give the money, would your family be so poor? Don't treat me like a dog, I won't fall for it. Dad, why are you so stubborn? Erguzi couldn't help it anymore. He was about to speak, but saw Li Changan beside him raise his hand calmly. He could only hold his words back and looked at Wang Tiezhu with frustration. If he really missed the opportunity to make a fortune because of Wang Tiezhu, he would turn against him even if he was his biological father. Uncle Wang, Uncle Son, I'm sure you've seen the bear I killed today. If I can't pay you, you two can just take the bear and divide it however you like. Li Changan waved his hand generously. It's not that he is poor and generous. If Liuli is made, the money he can make from making not only one bear but even 10 bears cannot compare to that from Liuli. Are you serious? You won't regret it. Both of their eyes lit up and they stared at Li Changan. They are short of money. Li Changan offered to give them a bear. Only a fool would accept it. Brother Li never tells lies. Hu Zi frowned in the back with an unhappy tone. He was glared at by his parents, but he glared back. Okay, you said it, don't go back on your word. We are waiting for the autumn harvest to collect your bear goods. If we don't have any, don't blame us for falling out. We still have some say in front of the village chief. Wang Tiezhu and others were quite satisfied and stopped making trouble. They happily took Hu Zi's parents away. After waiting for the 4 people to leave, Erguzi fell silent instantly. Let's go and get to work. Li Changan did not comfort him. Instead, he shouted and walked forward. Erguzi nodded. He followed behind Li Changan, looked at Li Changan's back and made up his mind that no matter what, he would do his best to help Li Changan. Otherwise, wouldn't that be a betrayal of Li Changan's promise to his parents? Li Changan is not asking anyone for help, he is asking these two for help, that is to give them some advice. Only then will his parents understand this truth. Hu Zi has skills, help me build the kiln first. Erguzi, you have good eyesight, come with me to find crucible soil. Li Changan has a good memory. Although he has been running into the mountains these days, he has not missed any details along the way. If he had not noticed these details, Li Changan would not have thought of making something like colored glaze, which takes a long time to make. Erguzi was confused by what he heard, but he didn't say much. He just followed Li Changan without saying anything, which was rare. That's it. Li Changan stopped on a slope and picked and chose the mud on the ground. He picked out a suitable piece of mud and threw it to Erguzi, and then the two of them started picking. After a long time, the two of them finally walked towards the end of the village, carrying 2 backpacks full of crucible soil. Although it is called Qianzi soil, there is not much difference in the eyes of ordinary people. When he returned to the end of the village, Hu Zi had already covered most of the kiln, waiting for the final ignition. Seeing Li Changan coming back, he waved at Li Changan with a dark face and said, "Brother Li, you take care of this last task. It's auspicious." "Yes, that's right. Only after it passes through your hands can we ensure that the things that are cooked later will go smoothly." Erguzi also recovered a bit and quickly followed suit, happily lighting the kiln grass and handing it to Li Changan. Li Changan chuckled twice, but did not refuse their request. He held the kiln grass in his hand and looked at the two of them, saying in a deep voice, "This is our starting point from now on, so work hard." Li Changan didn't plan to draw any extra cakes. There will always be a chance later. During the time when the kiln was being lit, Li Changan was not idle. He took advantage of the free time to crush and sift all the clay that he had brought back. Erguzi was very diligent and washed the sieved soil for a long time. Finally, Li Changan took over the shaping. At the beginning, Li Changan did not intend to make it too conspicuous. He mostly made it into wine utensils and pendants. He waited until all the water in the kiln evaporated before he started the fire and put the kiln into operation. There were so many steps in the process that even though Erguzi was watching alone, he didn't remember everything. Instead, Hu Zi remembered the general idea and made a few tigers in a realistic manner. These were also put into the kiln by Li Changan as blank molds to be fired. Of course, some damage was inevitable in the process, but Li Changan was still quite satisfied with the efficiency of shipping most of the goods. The next step is to burn it. Li Changan took a deep breath. Even if he wanted to teach the two people how to color fire, it was not an easy task. It required a very high grasp of colors. Li Changan did not intend to waste this first batch of colored glaze as teaching material. This process took more than 10 days. By the day when the furnace was opened, Erguzi and Huzi were almost sticking to their hot kill. They looked much more excited than Li Changan. My tiger won't break down, will it? Huzi was uneasy. Stop being such a bad mouth. It wasn't broken before. How could it be broken when it was made by Brother Chang'an himself? If it is broken, it's all your fault. Li Changan listened to the two people's discussion and simply gestured for them to stay away from each other before turning on the furnace. Hot steam rose from inside. A burst of colorful light. It's not broken. It's not broken. Erguzi jumped up instantly and stretched out his hand to grab the glass on top, but was held down by Li Changan. You want to be scolded to death? Li Changan said with a smile, I'll ask you to hand these things over to my sister-in-law. Wait for my good news. After saying that, Li Changan pondered for a moment before taking out a stupid tiger. Compared to other things, this tiger may not be so exquisite, but it is good enough for outsiders. And his purpose this time was just to show them. Li Changan briefly instructed the two men, then took his things, got on a donkey cart at the entrance of the village, and slowly headed towards the city. By the time Li Changan arrived at the county town, it was almost dusk. There was not much traffic in front of the county government office. Li Changan pinched the glass in his pocket and walked slowly towards the county government office. Hey! What are you doing? There came a hurried call from behind him. I'm talking about you. Li Changan was grabbed by the arm with force and took a few steps back unexpectedly. The Yarman runner with thick eyebrows and big eyes glared at him fiercely, pulled his arm and scolded, If you want to report the case, come back tomorrow. Don't you see what time it is today? Li Changan frowned slightly, I'm here to see the county magistrate. Hearing this, the bailiff was startled at first, looked at Li Changan twice, then sneered and let go of Li Changan. I say, can you country folk have some self-awareness? People like you don't even have the qualifications to ask for an audience with the county magistrate. Why are you dreaming of asking for an audience with the county magistrate? His tone softened a little. Forget it, forget it. I see you are just an ignorant farmer. I won't bother with you. Get out of here. Li Changan was here to do business and didn't intend to waste time with him. As long as you tell the county magistrate my name, he will see me. Hearing this, the bailiff was not surprised, but spat at Li Changan. You've got a pig in your head, right? You even told me your name. Who do you think you are? Li Changan was about to speak when he saw the bailiff's face full of surprise. He took 2 steps forward, pushed Li Changan aside, and hurried towards a small bridge. County magistrate, are you doing well today? He looked at the sedan chair with a fawning look on his face. Chapter 16 Let's talk business. The person in the sedan chair did not reply, but the people around him pushed the runner away. It was obvious that he didn't want to bother with the Yarman runners. The bailiff didn't dare to say anything and just stood aside with a nod and a bow. The county magistrate, right. Li Changan suddenly stepped forward to stop the sedan chair, frightening the bailiff so much that he shuddered. He quickly stopped Li Changan and said in a low voice, Are you crazy? I just scolded you a few times, I don't want you to be beaten to death, so don't seek death here, okay? You blocked the county magistrate's sedan chair. How many lives do you think you have left to be beaten? Seeing the reaction of the Yarman runner, Li Changan became even more certain that the person in the sedan chair was undoubtedly the county magistrate. County Magistrate Gong, I, Li Changan, have come to present you with a treasure. Li Changan said loudly immediately. The sedan shook twice, and then the curtain was opened from the inside, revealing a surprised face, Li Changan. When each county magistrate took office, the first thing he had to understand was the local dignitaries, who could be offended and who could not be offended, and he had to remember them clearly to avoid any mistakes. Gong Mingji couldn't say whether he was lucky or unlucky. In a small border county like this, there were definitely no prominent families or high-ranking officials. There were a few criminals who were exiled here. Li Changan is one of them. Not only does he not get any benefits on a daily basis, but we also have to send someone to keep an eye on him to prevent him from escaping. Originally, Gong Mingji had informed his teacher that he would be transferred out of this place after staying for 2 or 3 years. However, he happened to encounter the higher taxation, which was a headache for him. Moreover, he encountered Li Changan, who came to cause trouble. Mr. Li. Gong Mingji took a deep breath and reluctantly responded to Li Changan, for the sake of the name of Zhenguo Mansion, forget about the treasure. If you really have a treasure, keep it for yourself. What treasures does an exiled person have to mention? Gong Mingji shook his head. He knew Li Changan's current situation very clearly. If Li Changan really had some treasure, he would not have ended up like this. Gong Mingji looked down on Li Changan completely. He lowered the curtain and signaled the sedan bearers outside to continue moving forward. Unexpectedly, Li Changan said calmly, "If I were to say so, this treasure could help you solve your tax troubles." The sedan bearers continued to move forward. Etc. Gong Mingji lifted the curtain and hurriedly staggered out of the sedan chair. "Are you serious?" Li Changan raised his chin slightly but did not answer. Gong Mingji looked around and didn't even care about Li Changan's identity. He pulled him into the sedan chair and hurried into the government office. Only the Yarman runner at the door was left, leaning back and rubbing his eyes. "Damn it, I didn't drink today." He raised his hand and slapped himself, then shook his head frantically before coming to his senses. "Oh no! I must have offended some important person." At this time, Li Changan was already sitting on a wooden chair in the government office. He slowly picked up the teacup beside him and took a sip. Instead, Gong Mingji was so anxious that he kept pacing and looking at Li Changan anxiously. "Mr. Li, please stop keeping us in suspense. There are only two of us here. Tell us what treasure you want to see. If he fails to collect all the taxes, his official career will probably be ruined. If it weren't for this, he wouldn't have pinned his hopes on bringing the person back just because of Li Changan's words. What does the county magistrate think this thing is worth?" Li Changan did not reply yet, but took out the glass tiger and placed it on the tea table. "What is it?" Gong Mingji asked. Seeing that Li Changan didn't answer, he grabbed Xiaohu. He took a deep breath when he held it in his hand, then he lowered his head to look at the thing in his hand. This. He faced the light and exclaimed, "It feels cool to the touch, and has a translucent luster. It just looks a little childish, but in terms of price, it's comparable to fine jade. But jade is common, but such transparent things are rare." Gong Mingji played with it for a while before he remembered the important matter and looked at Li Changan. "Mr. Li, are you going to ask me to sell this item to make up for the tax? Even if it is feasible, I'm afraid it's only a temporary solution. What's more, Gong Mingji is not a stupid person. There is no such thing as a free benefit in the world. If he accepts this thing, who knows what Li Changan will ask him to do? What if this thing can be mass-produced?" Li Changan put down his teacup, ignoring the huge storm his words stirred in other people's hearts, and continued, "I am planning to do some business with the county magistrate. I will be responsible for getting the villagers to produce this product, and the county magistrate will find people to sell it. Wouldn't the tax money come from this business? Mass production." A strange light flashed in Gong Mingji's eyes. If he holds this thing in his hand, wouldn't it be? That's right. If the county magistrate is interested, I will go back and inform my sisters-in-law and discuss the details of the work. Li Changan still looked indifferent. But these words were like a wake-up call in Gong Mingji's ears. Speaking of the sisters-in-law around Li Changan, although they are also criminals, their family backgrounds can only be said to be extraordinary. Putting aside whether this thing came from one of the sisters-in-law's home, even if it was really a relic of the Zhenguo Mansion, he would not dare to take it. He was not so bold as to provoke so many noble families at once. Mr. Li's move will benefit Lin Cheng, so how can I refuse it? Gong Mingji cleared his throat. It's just that Mr. Li has just arrived here, and those villagers may not be convinced. If Mr. Li doesn't give up, why not take on the position of village head, which will make things easier? It is indeed convenient to deal with smart officials. Li Changan smiled slightly, agreeing to the matter. There are two reasons why Gong Mingji gave this position. The first point was to tie Li Changan to death on his boat mountain. The second point is that he is naturally afraid that Li Changan is just talking verbally. To be on the safe side, he lets Li Changan take up the post of village head and also take care of the tax collection post. Even if it is for himself, Li Changan has to do his job well. Li Changan was not surprised by Gong Mingji's behavior. After all, the situation was in his favor. Gong Mingji was relieved. In that case, I will send a carriage to take the head of the village back to the village early tomorrow morning to avoid delaying such an important event. In the early hours of the morning, Wang Tiezhu was stealthily wandering around the entrance of Li's courtyard with his men. Brother He, don't worry, the women inside are so pretty. I guarantee that you will sleep very comfortably after you get them. They are definitely top-notch goods. Wang Tiezhu rubbed his hands and spoke to the burly man behind him in a flattering manner. You have to promise me that after you deal with the women here, we will go deal with that little beast Li Changan. Now that Li Changan has become so tough and sturdy, he really doesn't dare to challenge Li Changan openly, but can he just let the matter of his leg and the bear's paw go? Definitely not. At worst, he can just pick up what Hige has left behind. Hige snorted coldly, the woman you choose had better be worthy of me waiting here for so long, otherwise. Wang Tiezhu is very confident about this. As the sun rose in the east, a creaking sound came from inside the house. Lin Yuero closed the mechanism in the yard as usual, picked up the basket and prepared to go out to pick wild vegetables. Right at this moment, Wang Tiezhu rushed forward quickly and covered Lin Yuero's mouth with the rag soaked in liquid before she could even scream. Brother He followed closely behind and pushed the man into their house. Lin Yuero's eyes were filled with horror and she struggled with her limbs, but there was no way she could defeat two big men and she was dragged in immediately. What are you going to do? She bit Wang Tiezhu's hand hard, and finally made Wang Tiezhu let go of the rag. Wang Tiezhu pinched his wrist and stepped back to Brother He. Brother He, how is it? Not bad, right? It's really top-notch stuff. No matter whether your medicine works or not, I'll just do it anyway. It's strong enough. So wet. I can't help it. Brother He laughed lewdly and kept looking at Lin Yuero's body. Wang Tiezhu immediately patted his chest and made the promise. Just wait and see. Within 10 counts, even a chaste woman will have to kneel at your feet and beg you to lick her. Chapter 17 Saving Lives is important. You guys. Lin Yuero looked at the two people who were grinning lewdly, her heart filled with despair. If she loses her virginity here, she might as well die. If I were a ghost, I would never let you go. Lin Yuero's eyes were filled with tears and she was about to ram her head against the wall. I just like strong women like you, har har har. Unexpectedly, Brother He reached out and picked up Lin Yuero by the waist. Lin Yuero couldn't help but scream and punched Hige weakly with her fists. Brother He remained indifferent and threw Lin Yuero onto the bed with a grim smile. Click! With a crisp sound, the clothes on Lin Yuero's shoulders were torn to pieces. Lin Yuero's pale shoulders were exposed to the air. She had no strength left in her hands and kept backing away, hugging herself with her hands. This made her look even more pitiful. Excellent. It's really excellent. Brother He's eyes lit up as he kept approaching Lin Yuero. Chang'an. Lin Yuero sobbed and curled herself up tighter. Wang Tiezhu burst into laughter upon hearing this. Are you still waiting for Li Changan to come back and save you? I calculated that he entered the city yesterday. No one from the village entered the city today. If he wants to come back, he can only come back the day after tomorrow. He wanted to take revenge on Li Changan. Not only did he want Brother He to beat Li Changan up, but he also wanted Li Changan to watch his sister-in-law being humiliated by them. Har har har, scream. Even if the King of Heaven comes today, he can't save you. Brother He felt even happier and looked at Lin Yuero with satisfaction. Bang! The wooden door was kicked open from outside. In an instant, wood chips flew everywhere, and before Wang Tiezhu could even come to his senses, he was kicked to the ground. Brute! When Li Changan saw this scene, his eyes turned bloodshot. Boy, don't come and interfere with my good deeds. Hainyo said with disdain, do you know who I am? My connections in the city are not something a country bumpkin like you can mess with. Get out of here. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Changan had already approached Hainyo. Bang! There was another loud bang, and Hainyo was pinned to the ground by Li Changan. He looked stunned and didn't react for a while. I'm going to kill you. The black bull roared loudly while enduring the pain. Li Changan's eyes were grim. He didn't wait for Hainyo to get up. He immediately grabbed Hainyo's arms and pulled his palms back suddenly. Two crisp clicks were heard, and Li Changan actually broke Hainyo's two arms. Arr! The screams of Black Bull echoed in the house. At this moment, Lin Yuero's faint call came from behind Li Changan. Changan! She pulled the rag beside her and covered herself hastily. With tears in her eyes, she grabbed the corner of Li Changan's clothes tightly and couldn't help but defend herself. I haven't. Lin Yuero's lips were trembling, her face was flushed, and the look in her eyes when she looked at Li Changan was a little dull. Upon seeing this, Li Changan immediately understood that Lin Yuero had been tricked, and he became furious. He stood up and glared at Hanyo. Grass. Wang Tiezhu sensed the murderous intent behind him, and hurriedly held onto Hanyo and ran out frantically. Li Changan naturally raised his foot to chase after him. Suddenly, a tender white hand covering her waist blocked his way, and a piece of warm skin pressed against her back. Chang'an, sister-in-law, is feeling uncomfortable. Li Changan felt Lin Yuero's hot breath, and before he could say anything, he felt a chill on his waist. He looked down. I just happened to see her white arms wrapped around his waist. It's so hot, Chang'an, help me. Lin Yuero spoke in a coquettish tone and kept fiddling with her clothes, revealing her delicate appearance. Li Changan's pupils shrank slightly, and he tried to break free from her. Sister-in-law, this is Chinese medicine, let me think of a way. Changan's body is so cold, like ice. You are the antidote. Lin Yuero simply didn't listen to Li Changan's words. Seeing Li Changan pulling his hand away, she stubbornly held onto Li Changan's hand and refused to let go. After a long time, Lin Yuero finally recovered and the things in her mind slowly came back to her mind. Her face turned red and she pulled the quilt to cover herself in embarrassment. She stared at Li Changan with wide eyes and couldn't utter a word. This. She stumbled, tears gradually forming in her eyes. Li Changan also hurriedly sat up. Sister-in-law, this is an emergency. If I didn't relieve you of the effects of the drug at that time, it would be fatal. After hearing this, Lin Yuero's expression gradually softened. But she quickly turned away with a red face. Li Changan also quickly put on his clothes, and was just pulling up his trousers when he heard the door creak. His eyes suddenly turned cold as he looked towards the door. Could it be that Wang Tiezhu and the other man have returned? They still have the guts to come back. Just as Li Changan was about to get up, he heard Zhu Yenyu's voice coming from outside. Little sister, why did you lose your basket outside? I picked it up for you. Why are you so careless today? It was Zhu Yenyu who had returned from hunting. As Zhu Yenyu's footsteps got closer, Li Changan and Lin Yuero both saw the tension in each other's eyes. No. They haven't put on their clothes yet. Chapter 18. Is there a solution? Little sister. Zhu Yenyu frowned and walked quickly towards their house, but she saw a big hole in the door. She was immediately panicked and pushed open the broken door. Little sister, are you okay? What happened at home? As soon as she rushed in, she happened to see Li Changan with his back to her, and Lin Yuero sitting on the bed with a flushed face. Hearing this, Lin Yuero quickly stood up and half-blocked Zhu Yenyu's sight. Wang Tiezhu brought a strange man in. Fortunately, Chang'an came back in time. What? Zhu Yenyu was furious. She clenched the basket in her hand, looked around for a long time, ran to the kitchen to get a kitchen knife and ran back. Where are they? The money has been paid back, and they still dare to come. I stomped their legs. Taking advantage of the time when Zhu Yenyu ran away, Li Changan finally tied his belt tightly and hurried to comfort Zhu Yenyu. Fourth sister-in-law, don't worry, I have already driven them away. I will not let this matter today go so easily. There was a hint of hostility in Li Changan's eyes. Next time I see Wang Tiezhu, I will definitely beat him up to vent my anger on my sister-in-law. While they were talking, Lin Yuero quickly picked up the sheets on the bed, lowered her head and said that she was going out to wash the sheets, then ran away in a hurry. Are you going to hide and cry? Zhu Yenyu frowned and planned to chase after him. Li Changan's throat tightened and he quickly stopped the man. Fourth sister, let's talk about taxes. Taxes? Do you have any ideas? She always takes time to go to the mountains these days to reduce the tax burden on her family. She doesn't think that Li Changan can easily come up with any suitable and good ideas. Do you remember that thing I fired in the kill earlier? Seeing that Zhu Yenyu was no longer bothered about him and his sister-in-law, Li Changan turned the matter to business. I have found a way. When the time comes, I will sell it. It will definitely help our family pay taxes, and maybe even help the village. I didn't see anything burning in your kill. Could it be pots, pans, or utensils? Zhu Yenyu smacked her lips and couldn't help shaking her head. Her brother-in-law usually stayed in the Jingguo mansion and suddenly encountered a big change. He had no life experience or business skills and thought that doing business was as easy as drinking water and walking. Whether you want to help the village or not is up to you, but I think you should not hold on to too much hope and go to town to find a job as soon as possible. Zhu Yanyu didn't say anything harsh after all. But she did feel that this was just Li Changan's fantasy and daydream. Li Changan was a little surprised at first, but then he understood. The few times Zhu Yanyu came to deliver meals, their vegetables were either being washed or already put into the kiln, so it was normal that she didn't see anything. Fourth sister-in-law, what I make is colored glass, which can definitely be sold at a high price, so you can rest assured. Zhu Yanyu even shook his head. She had never heard of this colored glaze. Li Changan was still too naive. Fourth sister. Seeing the two of them like this, Lin Yuero finally put down the work in her hands, wiped her hands, ran to the stove in the small kitchen on the side, untied the grey cloth and motioned Zhu Yanyu to come and take a look. You were not at home before, so you didn't see it when Erguzi and the others delivered the things. She smiled and pointed at the colorful pile of objects. From my perspective in the capital, Chang'an is still relatively shallow. Not to mention selling it at a high price, I'm afraid someone will rush to buy it. It's not like she had never seen those luxurious objects before, but none of them were as exquisite and delicate as those things Li Changan had. Lin Yuero was wondering if Li Changan had stolen these things from some immortal's house. But Zhu Yanyu still didn't believe it. She moved towards Lin Yuero reluctantly, muttering softly. Little sister, just coax Chang'an. If the junks he makes can't be sold, it will be a bigger blow. Chapter 19 Liar. Lin Yuero covered her lips and smiled secretly, just waved at Zhu Yanyu and didn't say anything else. Be good. Zhu Yanyu walked in and was startled. She couldn't help but say something slangy and rubbed her eyes. What are these? Why have I never seen them before? Some colorful light was reflected on her face, her eyes were wide open, and she looked back at Li Changan. Is this also what the old immortal taught you? Li Changan hadn't figured out how to explain why he suddenly burned these things, so he took the opportunity to back off and nodded. Zhu Yanyu hissed and took a deep breath. Well, can I touch it? She really regarded these things as treasures and acted as if she was afraid to get close to them. Li Changan couldn't help laughing. Of course you can, fourth sister-in-law, have you forgotten that these are to be sold? You don't have to be so careful. If you like them, I will make some hairpins and bracelets for you another day. Don't bother so much. Let's take care of business first. Seeing that Zhu Yanyu was really going to agree, Lin Yuero said, if you really have that free time, you should rest and don't tire yourself out. Zhu Yanyu wrinkled her nose and laughed guiltily twice before squatting down to take a closer look at the glass objects. Li Changan just smiled and said nothing, then he took out a bulging bag from his pocket and handed it to Lin Yuero. Take this money, little sister-in-law. I promise you and your fourth sister-in-law that our lives will get better and better. He held Lin Yuero's hand and patted it gently. Lin Yuero's cheeks flushed red, and she shyly pulled her hand away, not daring to look at Li Changan, let alone Zhu Yanyu. I'm going to go out for a while, you guys have a good rest at home. Li Changan curled his lips slightly, said hello, and went out with the remaining half bag of silver. The journey from Li's house to Wang's house at the village entrance only takes half an incense stick. It was noon when Li Changan arrived at Erguzi's house. Erguzi and Huzi stood in the yard under the sun with their heads slumped, their lips dry and looking listless. We really don't mean to criticize you too. Look, you've been following Li Changan for more than 10 days, and then what happened? He ran away to the city. Wang Tiezhu held his pipe and pointed at Erguzi and Huzi and cursed them. It's okay that Huzi is not smart, but you were fooled by Li Changan too, right? No matter what, you are going to the Li family with me today to ask for the bear. If you can't get it, you have to bring something back. Otherwise, you will lose a lot. As he was speaking, he raised his eyes and saw Li Changan standing at the door. He had just scolded Li Changan for running away, and now that he saw Li Changan, he did not feel guilty. Instead, he rushed to Li Changan with his pipe in hand and said, You! Hand over your bear quickly. Li Changan pushed the door open and calmly asked Erguzi and the other man to stand up. The two of them stood up quickly, causing Wang Tiezhu to jump up and down. Did I let you get up? And you, Li Changan, where's the bear? Li Changan turned around and said, I'm here to give you some silver. Hearing this, Wang Tiezhu's expression could be said to have improved a little, but he still smacked his lips in dissatisfaction. How much do you want to give me? Let me tell you first. My Erguzi and his older cousin Huzi have worked for you for more than 10 days. The money is not enough. Pop. Li Changan saw the bag in his hand placed on the stone table in the yard, and white silver came out of it. Wang Tiezhu's eyes widened instantly and he no longer cared about Li Changan. He rushed to the table to count the silver. Before he could count it clearly, Erguzi took it away. "This is my hard-earned money, Dad, don't worry about it," Erguzi said as he gave half of it to Huzi. He also wanted to take Huzi's money, but it was given by Li Changan. He didn't have the courage to go against his brother Chang'an, Ergu's father. When Li Changan saw Wang Tiezhu opening his mouth to curse, he waved his hand, motioning Wang Tiezhu to come over. "Please tell the village chief to gather all the villagers at the entrance of the village this afternoon. I have a big business and I'm in need of manpower. The salary won't be low." As Li Changan spoke, he slowly put the badge in his hand, which symbolized his position as village chief, on the table. "This." Wang Tiezhu rolled his eyes and his tone was still a little hesitant. "Travel expenses." Seeing his expression, Li Changan knew what he was thinking, and he raised his hand and threw half a string of copper coins over. Wang Tiezhu quickly took it and immediately smiled. Okay, I'll take your badge and talk to our village chief. You can wait and see in the afternoon. It will be done for you." Not to mention Li Changan, even Erguzi got goosebumps when he saw Wang Tiezhu's appearance. It was not until the afternoon that Erguzi and Huzi stood on the left and right behind Li Changan like door gods and swaggered to the village entrance. The village chief and Wang Tiezhu were sitting together, cracking their cigarette holders. When they saw Li Changan coming, they didn't stand up, but just looked Li Changan up and down, obviously still a little suspicious. As for the remaining villagers, they were in even more chaos, and each of them had his or her own dissatisfaction. "It's almost autumn harvest time, why did you call me over here? Won't this waste time? I heard that Li Changan has become an official. Maybe he wants to come over and show us his power. Didn't the village elders always serve as village heads in the past? How come it's Li Changan's turn now?" Everyone was murmuring. Li Changan winked at Erguzi. Erguzi clapped his hands quickly, walked in front of everyone, and said, "Don't get me wrong, Brother Chang'an asked everyone to come here this time because he actually has something good to say." Hearing this, everyone present was in disbelief. Only Widow Zhang squeezed to the front of the crowd, threw a few seductive glances at Li Changan, and said, "What good news is there? Tell me about it." "Brother Chang'an, I made some good stuff some time ago. The big shots in the city liked it and said they wanted to make a lot of it. But if they want to make a lot of it, there won't be enough people. So, Brother Chang'an decided that anyone in the village who is willing to help will be given a job." Erguzi looked towards Li Changan. Li Changan stood under the shade of the tree and opened his eyes lazily. 50 cents a day. 50 cents a day. Erguzi was surprised himself, and then he said loudly to the villagers, "Let's say, how can you guys earn 50 cents a day? This is our brother Chang'an who paid a huge sum for us for the sake of our fellow villagers." Widow Zhang was also slightly startled, and then she quickly shouted to Li Changan, "Brother Chang'an, your sister-in-law Zhang did this job." Whispering sound. Who would have thought that along with Widow Zhang's shout, a series of boos broke out among the villagers. Many men also looked at Li Changan with a common hatred for the enemy. "I say, Widow Zhang, are you going to work or to kill people? Don't be fooled." The others also agreed, 50 cents a day, that's a lot of money. I think this gambler Li Changan has even learned how to cheat. That's right, it's obvious that he's a liar. If this is true, I'll stand upside down and drink the night fragrance. Chapter 20 Widow Zhang. The villagers below were in an uproar. Wang Tiezhu opened his mouth and laughed continuously. He had suspected Li Changan before, but didn't Li Changan really come back with the silver? It's just a pity that his son was not a filial son and actually took all the money. Now that such an opportunity to make money is right under his nose, regardless of whether anyone signs up or not, he will be the first to rush to Erguzi. Write down your father's name. I, your father, will do the job this time. He pulled Sun Hu's father, who hadn't reacted yet, and forced him to fill in Hu's father's name as well. Wang Tiezhu thinks he is not stupid. Now Erguzi and Huzi are following Li Changan. Their two families were originally somewhat related, so shouldn't they be closer now? With these two people taking the lead, many villagers, tempted by the 50 cents, came over reluctantly and wrote their names. You are really crazy about money, but you don't even think about where Li Changan can get the money. You're just working for free. For a little money, your brain has gone haywire. Amid the ridicule of the crowd, Li Changan took the list from Erguzi, shook it a few times, and signaled everyone to follow him. There is a limit to the number of people who do the work, so the preliminary preparation work must always be done thoroughly. What we need to do now is to build more earth kilns so that we can achieve the goal of mass production. Fortunately, most villagers do know something about building kilns. Even if they don't, there are Erguzi and Huzi to help and guide them. Li Changan stood under the shade of a tree far away from the crowd, acting as a supervisor. He half closed his eyes and dozed off in this clear and cool autumn weather. Brother Chang'an, Brother Chang'an. Li Changan suddenly felt someone gently pushing his shoulders twice. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw that most of the sky was blocked by Widow Zhang, and a shadow like half a mountain was blocking his view. What are you doing? Li Changan cleared his throat and moved back to avoid the visual impact of Widow Zhang. He was lying there just fine just now. Who would have thought that Widow Zhang would suddenly bend down in front of him? If Li Changan had stood up instinctively just now, he would have been covered in the meaty smell of Zhang Guofu's secret weapon. Widow Zhang blinked at him with an innocent look, as if she didn't know what she had just done. Her fair little hand immediately grabbed Li Changan's hand. In full view of everyone, in broad daylight. Li Changan quickly withdrew his hand and stared at Widow Zhang. Sister-in-law Zhang, we can talk, but it's not good to tug at each other. He was not afraid of anything else but being known to bully Widow Zhang. At that time, will he still need to recruit people from the village? Then half of the young wives will not come. Long-term development. Of course, what Li Changan is thinking about here is also the issue of the labor force. After all, making glass is not considered physical work, and many wives and daughters-in-law can do the job. I'm not afraid, so why are you afraid? Widow Zhang covered her mouth and laughed, then sat down next to Li Changan. I just can't do some work, I want you to help me and teach me one by one. Li Changan stood up again. Erguzi and Huzi know how to do it. I'll call them over to teach you. I'm a little sleepy and need to take a nap. Li Changan said as he was about to call Erguzi over. Who knew that Erguzi was so smart? When he saw Widow Zhang standing next to Li Changan, he not only pretended not to see her and ran away, but also took Huzi away with him. The corner of Li Changan's mouth twitched. Widow Zhang behind him also came over with a smile. Okay, you don't know how to do it. Let's finish this quickly. Li Changan sighed and turned to look at Widow Zhang. Widow Zhang immediately brought a small basin filled with mud, wood ash, and a series of things. I just heard Ergu say that we need to mix these things together and then pile them up to make a kiln, but I can't knead them properly no matter how hard I try. Widow Zhang said this and placed the basin in front of Li Changan. Why can't I do this? Li Changan let out a long breath, rolled up his sleeves, and put his hands into the basin to rub it for a while. After a while, he kneaded the mud into a round ball. Do you see it clearly? Before he could pull his hand out, Widow Zhang's hand also reached in and was placed right under Li Changan's hand. The other hand covered the back of Li Changan's hand, clasping it tightly, while he said, I don't quite understand it. Why don't you teach me in person, Brother Changan? She was so close that Li Changan could almost feel the touch of her eyelashes on his thin sleeves. Good. Li Changan nodded, his mind clear. Widow Zhang tilted her head up to show Li Changan the thin layer of sweat on her pretty face. Li Changan pulled his hand out from Zhang Guofu's tightly gripped hand and said, It's about like this. It's not difficult. The daily salary is 50 cents. Don't be lazy. After saying that, Li Changan changed his position and continued to doze off with his eyes closed. Widow Zhang stared at the basin in her hand for a long time before she twisted her waist and went to work angrily. The setting sun dyed the sky golden red and also brought together the villagers of the Jia village. The villagers who had worked for Li Changan for a day were now looking at him eagerly, tightly clutching their sweaty towels in their hands, hoping to get their wages. More people gathered at the entrance of the village to watch the fun, pointing and talking at the villagers who were covered in mud. Hey, Wang Tiezhu, where have you been? Going to the mud pond to catch fish. A sarcastic voice sounded, with undisguised sarcasm. Wang Tiezhu blushed and stammered, We are helping Li Shucai build a kiln. Build a kiln? Har har, do you really believe that Li Changan will pay you for your work? Another voice laughed, I think you guys have been blinded by lard and worked as laborious for others for nothing. The crowd burst into laughter and Wang Tiezhu lowered his head in shame. Seeing this, Urguzi couldn't help but retort, "What do you know? Chang'an said that it's 50 cents a day, no cheating for anyone." 50 cents? Are you going to make yourself so embarrassed just for something that doesn't exist? The man who spoke earlier had a look of disdain on his face. "I think you are just greedy for a small advantage, you deserve to be cheated." That's right, that's right. For this meaningless thing, you even ignored your own land. I think you will starve this winter. Listening to the increasingly unpleasant discussions around them, the villagers who had originally held out a glimmer of hope gradually felt their hearts sink. Just then, Li Changan slowly walked in front of the crowd carrying a bag. Without waiting for anyone to speak, there was a loud rustling sound. Countless copper coins rushed out of Li Changan's bag and fell into the wooden barrel in front of Li Changan. Chapter 21 Come in. The sound of the copper coin falling into the wooden barrel was particularly crisp. The villagers who had been mocking endlessly were all speechless, and even the leader, Wang Tiezhu's father Wang Ji, opened his mouth and stared at the copper coins in the bucket. How much money does this cost? Did Li Changan steal or rob? How did he come up with such a large sum of money? All those who are working today should line up and come up to receive their wages in order. As Li Changan spoke, he motioned Zhu Yanyu to sit next to him so that he could write down the names of the workers who had received their wages. From beginning to end, he did not even glance at the villagers who were causing trouble. Humph, maybe he emptied out all his family assets to come up with this little. Someone said sourly. Instead, he was slapped hard by his own wife next to him. Why do you care whether they have so much money or not? Anyway, the people who worked today got paid. I shouldn't have listened to you in the beginning. Come to work earlier, and we should get 100 coins each. Obviously, there were quite a few people who had this kind of thought, and many of them couldn't help but whisper about it in their hearts. That's what Wang Tiezhu's father said. This kid definitely can't come up with the money. He even asked his family to borrow money before. Wang Ji listened to the voices of the people around him, and his expression became more and more unsightly. How much money do you really think Li Changan can come up with? Who knows, this money today may be the last money he has. Come back tomorrow and see if he can come up with anything. No matter what this group of people said, the villagers who were working all had happy expressions on their faces, smiling at the villagers who had come to join in the fun. Whatever you say, we are the ones who get paid today. Oh, you don't know how thoughtful Brother Li is. He was afraid that we would get a heat stroke, so he specially asked his sister-in-law to cook bean soup for us. You can't enjoy this blessing. After saying that, a group of people lined up happily, leaving only Wang Ji and others looking at this side with gritted teeth. There were indeed not many people coming to work today. Excluding the people from Urguzi and whose families, there were only about 10 people. After a while, the accounts were almost counted. Li Changan was not vague about this. He paid everyone their full wages. For those who worked the hardest, Li Changan even gave them an extra copper coin as meal allowance for the night. But the people around are envious. Brother Changan. The line gradually came to the end. Just as Li Changan handed over the money, he saw a familiar pair of tender white fingers touching the back of his hand and scratching it gently. Li Changan raised his eyes and saw Widow Zhang half lying on the table, winking at him seductively. I'm here to collect today's wages. Ahem. Zhu Yanyu coughed twice, took the initiative to count the last copper coins in the bucket, and pushed them in front of Widow Zhang. Then he made a gesture to Li Changan, indicating that Li Changan should leave. Li Changan really didn't want to have any further contact with Widow Zhang, and seeing the situation, he just wanted to get some peace and quiet, so he just walked away. But Widow Zhang really had no intention of letting him go. Seeing that Li Changan was really about to leave, she immediately stood up straight, twisted her waist to block Li Changan's way, with a charming appearance and a gentle voice. Brother Changan, I still haven't fully learned what you taught me today. As she spoke, her eyes fell on Li Changan, and her tone became sweeter and sweeter. The one in the afternoon was too small, and it's getting late now. If you don't mind, come home with me and help me rub the big ones, okay? Zhu Yanyu next to him almost coughed out her lungs and winked at Li Changan desperately. Li Changan frowned and looked down at Widow Zhang. Widow Zhang was a full head shorter than Li Changan, but from Li Changan's perspective, the scenery was absolutely beautiful. Okay, I'll go to your house and help you massage it later. Li Changan nodded. Widow Zhang really didn't expect that Li Changan would agree to her directly. She was stunned for a moment, then her brows lit up with joy and she cast a coquettish glance at Li Changan. Mrs. Zhang is waiting for you at home. You must come tonight. After saying that, she walked away swaying her waist. Bang! Since there was no one around, Zhu Yanyu slammed her palm on the table and said with gritted teeth, "What sister-in-law Zhang? She is not your sister-in-law in any sense of the word. We are your sister-in-laws. Fourth sister-in-law." Li Changan was a little amused and said, "It's just a title. What's there to argue about? I'm not going to argue about this." Zhu Yanyu turned her head angrily and glared at Li Changan. "I haven't said anything about you yet. Why did you agree to her for no reason? Don't you know that the matchmaker Huang was the one who found you?" She frowned and added, "She has ulterior motives and is not very well behaved. Anyway, I think that even if you want to find a wife, you have to think about the bloodline of the Zhenghua mansion. How can she be worthy of you? Not to mention Widow Zhang, even if it was any other girl in the village, no matter how good she was, in Zhu Yenyu's heart they were not worthy of Li Changan. Fourth sister-in-law, what are you thinking about now?" Li Changan shook his head helplessly. He knew that his two sisters-in-law actually had no bad intentions, they were just too serious about some things. If they were really petty and calculative, Widow Zhang would not have received her wages today, and she would have been troubled and criticized by Zhu Yanyu. "I know my limits. You can go back first." As Li Changan spoke, he pushed Zhu Yanyu towards the Li family. Zhu Yanyu muttered a few words, pouted reluctantly, and looked at Li Changan a few more times. Seeing that Li Changan kept waving at her to leave, she stomped her feet and turned away angrily. After seeing his fourth sister-in-law off, Li Changan stretched and walked towards Widow Zhang's house. By the time Li Changan arrived at the gate of Widow Zhang's courtyard, the sun had already set completely and it was dark all around. There was only a small oil lamp lit in Widow Zhang's house, and there were some vague light and shadows. Through the window paper, you can see Widow Zhang sitting in front of the window, playing with her hair. Li Changan went forward and knocked on the door. But he heard someone inside say, "The gate is not closed, Brother Changan, come in directly." After walking through the courtyard gate and just about to knock on it, Li Changan heard the door in front of him creak. Widow Zhang poked her head out from inside, and when she saw that the person in front of her was indeed Li Changan, a smile broke out on her face, and she generously opened the door a crack. "Come in." She turned around, took the oil lamp, and greeted Li Changan with squinted eyes. With the light, Li Changan could see clearly that she was only wearing a thin shirt and light-colored trousers. Seeing him come in, Widow Zhang directly. Chapter 22, Drink some water. He ran over and locked the door. Li Changan frowned slightly. Why lock the door? Widow Zhang saw that Li Changan was unhappy, and quickly explained, "If I want to learn skills from you, I must be on guard against other people." As she spoke, she welcomed Li Changan into the inner room, placed the oil lamp on the table at the side, and sat down herself. She kicked off her shoes and revealed her tender white ankles. She slowly rolled up her wide trouser legs, revealing the tender skin underneath, as if a few red finger marks would appear if she touched them. In the night, she looked at Li Changan with a resentful tone. "Because of you, I am exhausted today. My legs hurt so much. Brother Changan, please help me see if I have twisted my leg." Li Changan knew what Widow Zhang was up to, but he came here tonight with no other purpose than to teach Widow Zhang how to fire the kill. Seeing that Li Changan was truly indifferent, Widow Zhang had no choice but to come down from above and walked closer to Li Changan, twisting her slender waist. She raised her hand and hooked Li Changan's belt. Her eyelashes trembled slightly. She looked up at Li Changan, her red lips slightly parted as if about to speak. Li Changan quickly interrupted, "Sister Zhang, I see you can also fire a kill, so I will teach you how to fire colored glaze tonight." After saying that, he pulled his belt back up. Widow Zhang never thought that Li Changan was really here to work. After hearing what Li Changan said, I almost choked on my own saliva. He was half kneeling on the ground, coughing and crying. Li Changan showed no mercy and instead urged her to hurry up. After a long while, Widow Zhang came back to her senses. She stood up and drank several sips of water before swallowing the uncomfortable feeling in her throat. She glared at Li Changan a few times with a somewhat coquettish look. "I really don't know whether you, Brother Changan, did this on purpose or were just pretending." Li Changan didn't even look back, but kept urging her to speed up, forcing her to bend down and take out the crucible soil that had been distributed earlier. Widow Zhang really had no other choice but to bend over and carry a small basket of soil to Li Changan's feet. She was so tired that she gasped for breath and stuck out her tongue to breathe, just like a puppy. Li Changan turned a blind eye to it, picked up a small piece from it, and began to explain the whole process to Widow Zhang one by one. All these things end with a kiss. Widow Zhang had been confused by what she heard, and her eyes were full of stars. Only now did she come to her senses. What? Li Changan frowned as he looked at her absent-minded look. It's just a kiss. Pfft. Widow Zhang chuckled, covered her mouth and blinked, looking like she had found something to hold against Li Changan. I told you, no man would be so honest. Brother Chang'an can read after all, why are you talking so elegantly? Isn't it just a kiss? As she spoke, Widow Zhang slightly opened her lips, and the petite pink snake hidden under her red lips and white teeth, eagerly trying to drill into Li Changan's mouth. Just at this moment, a piece of crucible soil was precisely placed between the two. Par. Widow Zhang chewed a mouthful of mud and looked at Li Changan in surprise. I'm talking about kiss-making. Li Changan put down the crucible clay, looking disappointed. I just said that the previous steps are over, which is kiss-making to shape it. After baking, coloring and firing, you can make colored glaze. His tone was a little angry. Did you listen? Unexpectedly, his appearance made Widow Zhang squeeze her legs together. Her eyes were full of lust, her hands were uneasily clamped between her legs, and she shook her head shyly. Grass. Li Changan looked at Widow Zhang and decided not to continue scolding her. He held his forehead and said helplessly, Sister Zhang, I don't care what you think, but now there is an opportunity for you to make money and set up your own business. I don't want you to miss it. With your looks and figure, it might not be difficult for you to find a man to rely on, but what happens next? What if that man doesn't take you seriously at all and just treats you as a toy? What should you do? Widow Zhang was not a bad person, but as a widow, her life in the village was indeed not easy. She had never offended Li Changan, and Li Changan wanted to give her a chance to live. You still have to have a way to protect yourself, understand? Li Changan looked at Widow Zhang seriously and said, I will teach you again today. If you still don't listen, I won't teach you again in the future. As Li Changan's expression became increasingly serious, Widow Zhang tugged at her clothes uncomfortably. He put his clothes in order and sat quietly watching Li Changan's actions. Li Changan patiently repeated the process of making colored glaze before he stood up. Okay, I have to go back. Widow Zhang quickly stood up and looked at Li Changan awkwardly, not daring to continue her previous improper actions. It was not until Li Changan was about to open the door that she hurriedly chased after him. Brother Chang'an, it's so late, why don't you rest for a night? No. Li Changan opened the door and left. Widow Zhang looked at Li Changan's back with an indescribable feeling in her eyes. After a while, she wiped the water stains from the corners of her eyes and then raised her head again. Humph, it's just burning colored glaze. When I'm done, I'll make you look up to me. Then let's see how you can refuse me. Li Changan had no idea that Widow Zhang became more and more courageous as she faced more setbacks. He walked a long way away from Widow Zhang's house before he relaxed the tension in his body and rubbed his temples anxiously. He is a real man. Widow Zhang was so powerful, it would be a lie to say that Li Changan's body didn't react at all. But he couldn't take advantage of others' misfortune. Li Changan thought about it, clicked his tongue twice, and shook his head helplessly. It's better to go home and sleep early. The moon was already at its highest point in the sky. When Li Changan arrived home, the whole house was quiet and no one could be seen. Li Changan was afraid of waking up his sisters-in-law, so he didn't turn on the lights and groped his way towards his room. It was not until he sat on the bed that all the fatigue in Li Changan's body came over him. He yawned, threw back the quilt and lay down. Did my sister-in-law wash the quilt for me? Li Changan muttered sleepily. There was a strange fragrance inside the quilt, a bit like the smell of my two sisters-in-law. As he thought about it, he turned over and his palm suddenly touched something smooth. This woke him up completely. He jumped up and stared at the bulging quilt beside him. Why is there a woman in his bed? Chapter 23. Something bad happened. Anyone who finds a woman in his bed in the middle of the night would be confused, right? Li Changan was also dumbfounded. Sister-in-law. Li Changan called out softly towards the bulging quilt. There were some vague responses coming from under the quilt, which made Li Changan's blood boil. You're welcome now. He was ready to crawl into the quilt. But as soon as I put my head in, bang! The person on the bed suddenly kicked Li Changan to the ground. Before Li Changan could come to his senses, the quilt was buried on his head and the man opposite him started beating him up. Li Changan dodged quickly, rapidly eliminating candidates in his mind. Fourth sister-in-law. Stop hitting me. It's me. The quilt on Li Changan's head was lifted from the outside. Zhu Yinyu's face was red, she clenched her fists, and her almond eyes were wide open. Why did you climb on my bed? He is more wrong than Do-yi. Fourth sister-in-law, look carefully, this is my bed. Although Li Changan did not get hit many times, he felt a little aggrieved for being beaten for no reason. Zhu Yinyu was also dumbfounded. She looked around and suddenly hit her head in annoyance. I wanted to wait for you to come back so I could talk to you about Widow Zhang, but I didn't know what happened and I fell asleep while waiting. But halfway through, Zhu Yinyu felt that she had gained confidence again. Her face flushed and she looked at Li Changan menacingly, and said, then you can't just crawl into the bed. It's my own bed, can't I be generous? Li Changan is more justified than Zhu Yinyu. Zhu Yinyu was completely speechless now. Her red lips moved for a while, and finally she pursed her lips and stared at Li Changan without saying a word. Li Changan also sighed helplessly, and then pointed at Zhu Yinyu's clothes. Fourth sister-in-law, you should put on your clothes first. Because of Li Changan's nonsense in the quilt just now, both of them had their clothes in disarray. Zhu Yinyu's clothes had been undone by Li Changan a long time ago, and some of her skin was visible from underneath, making her look exceptionally fresh and delicate. Li Changan secretly smacked his lips. No wonder he felt it was more elastic. Zhu Yinyu had been hunting in the mountains all year round, so her skin was naturally different from Lin Yuero's delicate skin. Zhu Yinyu lowered her head and noticed that her collar was a little open, so she quickly pulled at her clothes. You are not allowed to tell your sister-in-law about what happened today, just pretend that nothing happened to us. Nothing happened in the first place. Li Changan touched his nose and muttered softly. Zhu Yinyu's eyes widened even more, and she stared at Li Changan fiercely, saying, what else do you want to happen? As she spoke, she waved her fist and bared her teeth. Anyway, you are not allowed to tell your sister-in-law, let alone tell anyone else. Okay, I won't tell my sister-in-law. Li Changan was helpless. After Zhu Yinyu got the promise, she didn't care about Li Changan anymore and ran outside, her movements faster than a rabbit. There's no fun anymore. Li Changan sighed and slowly lay back on the bed. Thinking of Zhu Yinyu's forced serious look, he couldn't help laughing out loud. Zhu Yinyu had already returned to Lin Yuero's bed at this time. Listening to Li Changan's movements, she blushed and gritted her teeth. Originally, he wanted to wait for Li Changan to come back from Widow Zhang and give him a good lesson, but he didn't expect that he fell asleep and confusedly thought it was his bed. You little brat. The next morning, Li Changan had just gotten up from bed and was about to take a walk in the yard when he ran into Zhu Yinyu. Fourth sister-in-law. Li Changan looked at Zhu Yinyu who was sneaking out with a bow and arrow on her back, and reached out to take the weapon off her body. Now I can make money, you don't have to risk going into the mountains anymore, and you can take care of my sister-in-law at home. I advised her the same thing, but she just wouldn't listen. Luckily you arrived in time. Lin Yuero also rushed forward from behind, leaning on Li Changan breathlessly, and it was obvious that she had had an argument with Zhu Yinyu. Zhu Yinyu looked at the two of them with a red face, seeming to want to say something but stopping herself, staring at Li Changan with her round eyes. Lin Yuero had no idea what had happened between the two of them, so she could only look at them in surprise. Just as she was about to ask, she saw a group of people pushing and shoving towards the gate of the courtyard. Didn't you say that Li Changan would definitely not be able to come up with the money next time? Didn't you also say that you would never work for Li Changan even if you were beaten to death? A group of villagers are as hostile to each other as fighting cocks. However, their purpose of coming here was naturally not to quarrel in front of the Li family's door. When they saw Li Changan, they waved at Li Changan through the courtyard gate, and their attitude was very warm. Seeing this, Lin Yuero dragged Zhu Yinyu, who was still stiff-necked, back into the room so that she could ask Li Changan to go and greet the group of villagers. Li Changan yawned, walked to the gate, and raised his eyebrows at the crowd. It's rare, how can so many people come to my door? Look at what you said, Chang'an. You are so capable, so wherever you go, there will be a lot of fun, right? The person who spoke was actually Wang Ji, who had been critical of Li Changan yesterday. After he finished speaking, he turned behind him and called out, "Everyone, is that right?" There was no reason for everyone not to respond, they all nodded in agreement. Li Changan snorted and laughed twice. "Tell me, what are you doing here?" Wang Ji was rubbing his hands, and his attitude was extremely good. "I just saw that there weren't many people working there, so I thought of coming over to help you, didn't I?" When Li Changan heard this, he immediately understood. He was not polite. "I am indeed short of people. Even if everyone in the whole village came to work for me, I could still afford it, but. Everyone's heart was in their throat and they looked at Li Changan nervously. "You latecomers will only be paid 25 cents a day." Following Li Changan's words, Wang Ji, who was originally smiling, suddenly had a long face. "Li Changan, what you said is immoral, isn't it? Why are they only 50 cents and we are only 25 cents? He was extremely unhappy. "You should think carefully, there are so many of us, we can help you with the work, but we can also make you unable to work." Li Changan raised his eyebrows slightly, but before he could say anything, he saw Erguzi running towards him in a hurry. "Brother Changan!" Erguzi shouted and kicked the villagers who were blocking his way. "Oh no! I saw Wang Tiezhu leading a group of people towards the kiln we just built, saying they wanted to destroy it." Li Changan frowned. Erguzi was still mumbling, "What should we do? There are only a few of us, we can't stop them at all." "It's okay." Li Changan patted his shoulder, then looked at everyone. "Okay, don't you all want a daily wage of 50 cents? He had a sneer on his face. "As long as you take care of Wang Tiezhu, I will give you 50 coins a day." As soon as Li Changan finished speaking, the eyes of everyone present lit up. Wang Ji took a step forward and stared at Li Changan seriously. "Do you mean what you said?" Chapter 24, Sacrifice for the Sake of Justice. "No, Wang Ji, you are Wang Tiezhu's biological father." The others looked at Wang Ji in surprise. Even Li Changan was stunned. After a long while, he gave Wang Ji a thumbs up and said, "You are putting justice above personal interests." "Okay, I will definitely keep my word." Wang Ji laughed and didn't care about Li Changan's teasing. Instead, he moved closer to Li Changan and spoke in a low voice. "That means if I take care of Wang Tiezhu, I will get 50 wen a day. If I catch Tiezhu, will I get 150 wen a day?" Afraid that Li Changan would disagree, Wang Ji quickly added another sentence. "Don't worry, I will make sure to teach that kid a lesson and send him back to you." Wang Ji was extremely determined. "If you are worried that he will run away, I will break both of his legs." "That's not necessary." Li Changan smacked his lips. "All you have to do is tie him up and bring him here. I'll give you 100 coins a day." Wang Jisha got 50 coins, but he was still a little unwilling. "How about this? I'll break his arm for you, and we'll get 150 coins, okay?" Li Changan was numb after hearing this. He pinched the bridge of his nose and looked Wang Ji in the face. "Even if you beat him to death and send him here, I will only give you 100 coins a day. Do you understand?" Wang Ji smacked his lips somewhat unwillingly. "Okay, 100 coins is 100 coins. Are you still not satisfied with this?" The people around couldn't help but take a deep breath. "That's 100 coins a day. If you do this for 10 days or half a month, won't you make a fortune?" Wang Ji really got a great bargain. Why don't they have an unfilial son like Wang Tiezhu? Are you still not satisfied? Li Changan raised his eyebrows. "This is not acceptable." Wang Jila shook his head and said hurriedly, "How can that be possible? I'll go and take care of him right now." While speaking, Wang Ji was smiling like an old chrysanthemum. He looked around, rushed into the yard, grabbed the nearest dung scoop and ran away. The others also reacted, and fearing that they would be left behind, they picked up some hose and kitchen knives and ran after Wang Ji. Before Aguzi could even catch his breath, the group of people disappeared. He panted and opened his mouth, looking at Li Changan in surprise. "Then who is Wang Tiezhu's biological father?" "Daddy." Li Changan nodded, then waved to Erguzi. "Looks like we don't need to worry about it anymore. Go call Huzi over and have some food together. We still have to work today." At the end of the village, there is an earthen kiln. Wang Tiezhu, with his group of brothers behind him, stood in front of the few people in a heroic manner, and said, "We are all fellow villagers. I came here today just to teach Li Changan a lesson. If you get out of the way now, I won't deal with you. Go away." He waved his hand. I originally thought that the people present would just scatter, but unexpectedly, their expressions became even more determined. How would Wang Tiezhu know? As long as Li Changan offers this wage, anyone who works for him will not destroy Li Changan's things. If there is no work to do, who will give them money? Damn it! If you don't let me, don't blame me for being rude. Just when Wang Tiezhu was about to order everyone to come forward, he saw Wang Ji and a group of people running towards them from a distance. Now Wang Tiezhu feels more confident. He dragged a chair and sat down in front of everyone, crossed his legs, pointed at Wang Ji who was running aggressively behind him, and then pointed at everyone. See? My dear father is here to help. Wang Tiezhu was very proud. We are all from the same village. You know how good my father is at fighting, right? If my father fights you, can you beat him? Those people who stayed with Li Changan to work yesterday were cursing in their hearts. Needless to say, Wang Ji must have brought people here to cause trouble because he didn't earn 50 cents yesterday. You Wang family members are so unreasonable. Someone couldn't help but curse. No one stopped him from working, but he didn't come on his own, yet he had to come and cause trouble. Wang Tiezhu had no idea what they were complaining about, but seeing how flustered they were, he felt extremely happy. Who told you to be so close to that kid Li Changan? If you don't leave today, you'll deserve to be beaten. As he spoke, he called out to the younger brothers behind him. Hurry up, smash them all. Don't leave any residue or scraps. Brother He said that if you smash them well and cleanly today, he will give you extra money. It was because Hanyo was still healing his arm that he didn't come in person. Wang Tiezhu thought he was pretty good to his fellow villagers. If Brother He came, even if there was a dog here today, he would still get 2 slaps. Don't smash it, don't smash it. Don't you just want the reward? Go find Li Changan and talk it over. Maybe Li Changan will be willing to give you money. In order to protect the fruits of their labor, the villagers have tried every possible means. After all, there are still 50 cents today. Wang Tiezhu rolled his eyes and sneered, Li Changan. Li Changan's money belongs to me. I'll deal with this place first, then I'll deal with that little bastard. As they were talking, Wang Ji also came up to the crowd with a dung scoop. Seeing that they could not persuade Wang Tiezhu, the villagers standing next to the earthen kiln could only pin their last hope on Wang Ji. Wang Ji, think carefully. If you don't come to work and don't get paid, it's fine. But if you offend the head of the village, what are you going to do when the tax is collected? What does it have to do with the head of the village? Wang Tiezhu didn't know that Li Changan had changed his identity. He just stood up proudly, walked 2 or 3 steps to Wang Ji, and pointed at the villagers opposite arrogantly. Isn't it just Li Changan's junk? Can the head of the village still control it? Besides, this is my father, my real father. If he doesn't help me, will he help Li Changan? Yes, I help Li Changan. Wang Tiezhu heard Wang Ji's reply from behind. He listened and started to shout again, did you hear that? My dad is helping. He was halfway through his words when he came to his senses and turned to look at Wang Ji. Dad? Did you say something wrong? Wang Ji showed a sinister smile, and the dung bucket in his hand creaked. That's right, I'm helping Li Changan today, and I'm going to take care of you. Bang! A sound. Wang Ji put the dung scoop in his hand directly on Wang Tiezhu's face. An extremely wonderful smell spread from the dung scoop. Wang Tiezhu opened his mouth to scream, but as soon as he made a sound, he couldn't help but feel his stomach churning and made bursts of vomiting sounds. What are you all still standing there for? Arrest them now. Do you still want your wages? Wang Ji took the opportunity to kick Wang Tiezhu to the ground and hurriedly called out to the villagers behind him. All the villagers rushed up holding various weapons. The group of younger brothers led by Wang Tiezhu had never expected such a scene. They were caught off guard and were beaten and fled in panic. Wang Ji. I am your son. Your only son. Chapter 25. Do you know who you have offended? Wang Ji didn't even listen to what Wang Tiezhu was yelling about. I didn't care about you so much, now I'm going to deal with you so I can take the money. The more Wang Ji said this, the more he felt that this was the truth. The harder he hit, the more secure he would be in getting the money. The dung scoop in his hand fell madly on Wang Tiezhu's head. At first, Wang Tiezhu was yelling and cursing at Wang Ji, but later he didn't have the energy to yell at all. He held his head and ran around on the ground, with feces all over his body. Dad, you are my biological father, please stop hitting me. What if you beat your only son and make him stupid? It was obvious that Wang Tiezhu's words did not impress Wang Ji at all. Who is my father? I am your son. Wenji finally reacted after he finished speaking. Bar, who is your father? I don't have a son as unfilial as you. Do you know how much money Li Changan will give me? He looked around, feeling somewhat proud of himself. As long as I give you a good beating, Li Changan will give me 100 coins every day. Don't say you are my son, even if you are my ancestor, I will still beat you today. 100 coins a day. The only purpose of the son he gave birth to was this. Wang Tiezhu never thought that there would be such a thing, but he was unwilling to accept it, and immediately shouted, Dad, are you kidding me? It's just 100 coins, I can give it to you. I am your and mother's only child, how can you be worthy of my dead mother by beating me like this? Who would have thought that when Wenji heard what he said, he became even happier? If your mother knew how mean you are, she would beat you even harder than I did. Besides, that's 100 coins a day. 100 coins a day is enough for me to find another wife and have a bunch of kids. You are nothing. As he said that, Wenji pushed Wang Tiezhu to the ground and shouted to the people around him to come with ropes to tie up this unfilial son. Wang Tiezhu and others, who originally had the advantage in numbers, were simply no match for Wang Ji's men after they arrived. They were knocked down and captured in just 3 moves. Except for Wang Tiezhu, the rest were tied up and bundled together and sent towards the Li family. But Wang Tiezhu's situation was much more miserable than these people. He had a dung bucket on his head and was tied up tightly. He was dragged like a dead pig from the end of the village all the way to the doorstep of Li's house. Li Changan had just finished his breakfast, and when he went out he saw a huge group of people in front of him. Each of them had in his hands the guys he had tied up and brought with him to cause trouble. The leading Wenji was like a rooster that had won a fight. He pushed open the gate with great vigor and kicked Wang Tiezhu right under Li Changan's nose. Look, I caught him. Wenji motioned Li Changan to look at his feet and continued, what we said before should still count, right? I have already dealt with my own son, you can't cheat. Because of Wenji's words, the others looked at Li Changan nervously, fearing that Li Changan would really deny it. After all, Li Changan only had the words to give money. If Li Changan says now that he can't manage the wages of so many people, there's nothing they can do, right? You know, including the people who had worked for Li Changan before, the people who are now joining Li Changan in these jobs include more than half of the villagers in the village, which is not a small number. Li Changan raised his eyebrows. He stared at Wang Tiezhu, who was crying out in pain under his feet, then looked up at Wang Ji, grinning and clicking his tongue twice. You are really cruel to attack your own son. Li Changan originally thought that Wang Ji was just going to bring Wang Tiezhu over, but now it seems that he is really going to punish him. It is worthy of being called killing one's own relatives for the sake of justice. Li Changan noticed that everyone was getting more and more nervous, and cleared his throat. Okay, since I've already promised you, I won't go back on my word. You guys go to work as usual today, and I'll pay you as usual. You guys won't be left out. After he said that, he grabbed a piece of rag from the side, wrapped his hands around it and tried to drag away Wang Tiezhu, who was covered in feces. Wang Ji became anxious and stood in front of Li Changan. Li Changan couldn't help but stop and looked at Wang Ji with some surprise. It can't be that Wang Ji's fatherly love suddenly awakens and he doesn't allow him to take Wang Tiezhu away, right? There's all count, but what about my 100 wen? We agreed before that I would give you 100 wen every day. You shouldn't miss it, right? Wang Ji stared at Li Changan. He was doing it for nothing else but his own 100 coins. Li Changan couldn't help but laugh. He looked around and saw that the people around him not only did not disagree with Wang Ji's mention of the 100 coins, but instead looked at Wang Ji with admiration. How can I not admire that? The one who suffered was Wang Ji's own son. Wang Ji acted so decisively and vigorously that he made outsiders feel painful when they saw the beating. It is right for Wang Ji to earn this money. Don't worry, I won't give you a penny less. If it's 100 coins, it's 100 coins. Just come and collect it after you finish the work. Only after hearing Li Changan's words did Wang Ji feel relieved. He no longer stared at Wang Tiezhu, but instead looked back at the villagers with a proud look on his face. Hey, sons are there to be used. The surrounding villagers had nothing to say and could only smack their lips. Today's earthen kill should be ready. You and Huzi go and teach them how to fire the plain clay. Leave the final firing to Widow Zhang and my sister-in-law. Li Changan dragged the half-dead Wang Tiezhu into the shack next to him and waved to Erguzi, who was following behind him, signaling him to get the job done. There are quite a few villagers present today, and it would be unrealistic to ask Li Changan to teach them one by one. Li Changan had already prepared for this, otherwise he would not have taught Erguzi and Huzi how to do things from the beginning. Erguzi glanced at Wang Tiezhu and said, "Brother Changan, this kid is restless. How about I give him a beating first, and then you can just go and do your thing. Things over there are more important." When Erguzi heard what Li Changan said, he was overjoyed. Li Changan entrusted important matters to me. Doesn't that mean Li Changan trusts me? He smiled cheerfully and quickly called on the villagers to go to work. Seeing Wang Tiezhu and his hand fall to the ground, Li Changan slowly scooped a spoonful of clean water from the water tank beside him and splashed it on Wang Tiezhu's face. The stimulation of cold water instantly cleared Wang Tiezhu's confused eyes. He widened his eyes and looked at Li Changan in front of him. "Li Changan!" Wang Tiezhu roared with gritted teeth and stared at Li Changan. He has suffered more in these days than in all the years since he was born. And all of these were brought by Li Changan. How dare you incite the villagers to take action? Do you know who I brought here today and who you offended before? Chapter 26, The Prime Minister is very generous. Of course I don't know. Li Changan answered calmly, looking at Wang Tiezhu's expression. It could even be said that he was smiling a bit. He didn't take Wang Tiezhu's words seriously at all. "Well, why don't you tell me who I offended?" Li Changan slowly squatted down, clenched his fists, and stared at Wang Tiezhu's face calmly. Wang Tiezhu choked. He really didn't expect Li Changan to react so directly. If an ordinary person hears such words, wouldn't they feel scared and ask themselves what to do in fear? But he quickly cheered up and said, "Isn't it strange that you don't know that a country bumpkin like you, who is also an exiled criminal, has no chance of entering the city?" Wang Tiezhu laughed strangely. "The person you offended is a big shot in the city, He Nyo from the Cleaver Gang, Hige. If I were you, I would honestly offer those women to Brother He, kowtow and confess my guilt, and try to get Brother He to stop holding it against me." After that, he motioned Li Changan to look down at the ropes on his body and said, "Of course, if you untie my ropes now, stand still and let me beat you up, I can reluctantly consider whether to plead for you at that time." The Cleaver Gang. Li Changan snorted and laughed, stretching out the sound. "If it were any other name, I might still feel scared, but isn't this name a little too funny?" Wang Tiezhu was furious when he heard this. "How dare you point fingers at the Cleaver Gang? Do you know how many people the Cleaver Gang leader killed with a single knife? You'd be scared if I told you, but he killed more than a dozen people with just a single knife. You should just hand over your sisters-in-law. Don't blame me for reminding you that your life is much more important than your two sisters-in-law." Bang! A sound. Li Changan kicked Wang Tiezhu directly in the belly, causing him to curl up like a shrimp. "I'm not a coward like you." Li Changan bent down and looked at Wang Tiezhu's face calmly. "You should be thankful that my sister-in-law was fine that night, otherwise you wouldn't be here to talk to me today. Har har, do you really dare to beat me to death? Do you really dare to go against the Cleaver Gang?" Wang Tiezhu shouted in anger. Li Changan looked at him coldly. Suddenly, a foot stepped heavily on Wang Tiezhu's head, almost deforming it. "If you want to die, I can help you." After he finished speaking, he met Wang Tiezhu's horrified eyes and slowly said, "But before that, I can show you how the Cleaver Gang in your mind was destroyed." After saying that, Li Changan turned around and walked into the kitchen. All the glassware in the kitchen was loaded onto the donkey cart, ready to go to the county town. If he wanted to take action in the county, he had to give people a heads up in advance. At this time, at the gate of the county government office, a cold-looking woman was standing beside the old man, supporting him with concern. "Boss, you must take care of yourself. If anything happens to you, the young lady will blame herself even if she comes back." Xie Wang, who was called the host, shook his head, picked up 2 drumsticks with difficulty, and continued to beat the big drum in front of him. Seeing that he couldn't persuade the other party, Liu Anran didn't want to persuade him anymore, and his expression was full of sadness. She had worked in the Xie family for such a long time, and the Xie family treated them, the long-term workers, with tolerance, and Miss Xie was even more gentle and polite. It was a pity that she had suffered such a disaster. If there was a boy in the Xie family, they would not have ended up in such a situation. However, when Liu Anran thought of this, he couldn't help but shook his head. So what if there is a boy in the family? Think about the man in your own family. It would be worse if you didn't have him. He only knows how to drink and gamble all day long. The only function is probably to leave a legacy for descendants in their Zhenghua mansion. It turned out that the woman was none other than my third sister-in-law Liu Anran, who worked in the town. Li Changan, who had walked to the gate of the government office, also recognized Liu Anran. He couldn't help but frown and hurried forward. Third sister-in-law, why are you here? Is someone bullying you? He meant well, but Liu Anran just glanced at him, supported Xie Wang and said nothing. Xie Wang looked at Li Changan and asked, who is this? Liu Anran reluctantly turned around and said helplessly, this is my brother-in-law, Master Xie, you can just call him Chang'an. After this brief introduction, Liu Anran looked at Li Changan again and spoke. You are really capable. You have come all the way here to find me. I don't have any money on me right now, so I can't give you money to play cards. If you want money, come back another day. As soon as Xie Wang heard Liu Anran's words, he knew that Li Changan was the gambling brother-in-law that Liu Anran always talked about, and he immediately gave up the idea of talking to Li Changan. Li Changan was about to explain something when he was interrupted by Liu Anran. You don't have to think about the right path all day long. You wasted so much effort just to ask me for money to play cards. If you have any conscience, you shouldn't do this. I'll let it go, but my fourth and fifth sisters have to suffer with you every day, Liu Anran sighed. Li Changan really didn't want to hear this. It was fine before, but since he came, he has never let Zhu Yanyu and Lin Yuero suffer at all. Third sister-in-law. But thinking about it, it was also because the previous impact was too profound. Li Changan smiled bitterly and had to open his mouth to defend himself. Liu Anran had long believed that he had seen through Li Changan. When he saw Li Changan was about to speak, he raised his hand to stop Li Changan and then said, I won't talk to you now. I'm not like you. I have nothing to do all day long. I have things to do. I'll settle the recent things with you later. Li Changan didn't even have the chance to say anything, as Liu Anran directly helped Xie Wang into the yarman, leaving Li Changan standing alone in front of the yarman, feeling very awkward. He touched his nose and was about to take the things in the car into the yarman. A familiar figure ran out from inside. Oh, the village head, it's you, right? Shusu hurried out of the yarman and took the bag of colored glaze in Li Changan's hand. Li Changan had no impression of him and his eyes showed some confusion. Shusu hurriedly invited Li Changan in while apologizing, you are a noble man who forgets things easily. I am afraid that you don't remember me. I was blind before and blocked your way. I regretted it when I went back that night and slapped myself twice. Only then did Li Changan react. Isn't he this the bailiff who was at the door before? Chapter 27 This is all hard cash. Shusu's words made him feel nervous, but Li Changan had already forgotten what happened before. It's just a small matter, you don't have to worry too much. Li Changan walked towards the yarman. Along the way, Shusu just nodded and said yes. His nodding and bowing appearance was completely different from when Li Changan first met him. Inside the county government office, Gong Mingji sat at his desk, yawning one after another, flipping through his subordinates' petitions carelessly, squinting his eyes and smacking his lips, looking like he was about to fall asleep. But he did not forget Liu Anran and Xie Wang who were kneeling below him. Tell me, who do you want to sue and what is the matter? Xie Wang was already old, and due to his emotional excitement, he was unable to explain the matter clearly for a long time, so Liu Anran stepped forward. I want to sue the Cleaver Gang in the city. Hearing the familiar name, Gong Mingji finally opened his green eyes and looked at the two people kneeling below. He tapped the petition on the table and then asked, tell me what's going on. To answer your question, I made longbows at this old man's house. He owns a restaurant in town. A few days ago, the Cleaver Gang sent people to ask for operating fees. The old man was unwilling to pay, so they repeatedly came to his house to cause trouble. Liu Anran was also a person who had experienced great things, and he spoke of the matter in an orderly manner. Today, my young lady went to the store to collect the accounts, and was seen by the Cleaver Gang. They actually kidnapped my young lady on the pretext that we did not pay the operating fee. She looked at Gong Mingji intently and said, I came here today to sue the Cleaver Gang together with the Xie family for making up all sorts of excuses to oppress the people and forcibly snatch women from the people. Gong Mingji's heart skipped a beat. It would be easy to say goodbye to something, but it had to be the Cleaver Gang. Of course he also knew that the Caidao Gang collected so-called operating fees in all the major towns. Not to mention restaurants, Even roadside vegetable stalls had to pay money to the Cleaver Gang. How could Gong Mingji, the county magistrate in this county, not know such a thing? He pretended to be in deep thought, his eyes constantly looking at Liu Anran. He found Liu Anran familiar, but he couldn't think of where he had seen Liu Anran before. Besides, the Xie family was not well known in the county, so Gong Mingji felt relieved. How dare you frame others? I know the Cleaver Gang and they never do such evil things. This time it's fine, but if you dare to frame others next time, I will not let you off easily. After saying that, Gong Mingji signaled the surrounding Yarman runners to drive Liu Anran and Xie Wang out. At this time, Xu Su also arrived with Li Changan. Hear Gong Mingji's words clearly. Gong County Magistrate, how can you rashly make a judgment without finding out the truth? Li Changan opened his mouth and rebuked, if you act like this, you don't even know how many unjust, false and wrong cases there are in this county. What kind of official are you? As soon as he finished speaking, the court fell into dead silence. Gong Mingji also stared at Li Changan in astonishment, not knowing how he had offended this ancestor again. The first person to come to his senses was Liu Anran. She took a few steps forward anxiously and angrily scolded Li Changan, this is the county government office, not a place for you to speak nonsense. After Liu Anran finished speaking, he lowered his voice again. You are really crazy. You come to the court to make trouble. Do you think your identity is not troublesome enough? If the county magistrate wants to deal with you, no one can stop him. Is it because I spoil you too much that you can't tell your own position? She lowered her head and glared at Li Changan, then shouted, get out now. This can't go away. This is his god of wealth. Where can he find him if he gets away? Gong Mingji coughed twice and said, I wonder what the village head wants to see me about. Village head? Liu Anran couldn't believe his ears. How did Li Changan become the village head? Li Changan didn't look at her, but looked at Gong Mingji coldly. Gong Mingji didn't know what he had done wrong, but when he met Li Changan's gaze, he felt inexplicably guilty. To answer your question, sir, this happened by coincidence. I am here to sue the Cleaver Gang as well. Li Changan finally spoke up, this Cleaver Gang doesn't intend to let my small business continue. Do you think I should sue them? Gong Mingji was no longer sleepy this time. This. He looked at the helpless Liu Anran and the other man below, and said, in that case, let's handle both cases at the same time. You two go down first. When I find out the truth, I will definitely give you justice. Liu Anran and Xie Wan were overjoyed and hurriedly bowed to Gong Mingji to express their gratitude. Under Gong Mingji's urging, they did not dare to stay in the Yarman and left quickly. But before leaving, Liu Anran did not forget to glare at Li Changan. It feels like I'll deal with you when I have time. Only when there were no more outsiders in the court did Gong Mingji come down from his seat with a long sigh. Mr. Li, the head of the village, you are not trying to be a hero and save the beauty, are you deliberately causing trouble for me? Li Changan took the bag from Xu Su's hand, looked at Gong Mingji with a sneer, and motioned Gong Mingji to follow him. After all, this was his future god of wealth, who could help him solve the big problem of taxes. Not only did Gong Mingji not dare to reprimand Li Changan for his bad attitude, he even reached out several times to carry things for Li Changan. But Li Changan avoided them all. It was not until he entered the back court that Li Changan opened the bag in his hand. In an instant, the whole room was reflected with a layer of colorful light, which looked very dazzling. This is the output of one furnace, and there will be more in the future. Li Changan sat on one side and said calmly, enough. Gong Mingji rubbed his hands and hurriedly wanted to pick up a glass to take a closer look, but Li Changan blocked his arm. But today, the people from the Cleaver Gang almost smashed my kiln. Do you think they still want me to continue this business? Anyway, I have no debts and I can stop doing it if I can't continue. What do you think? Only then did Gong Mingji realize that what Li Changan had just said was no joke. Why would the Cleaver Gang bother you for no reason? Then he quickly said, let's think of a way to deal with this. We have to do business. Doing business is difficult. Even you, the county magistrate, have to find a way to solve the problem. I am even more helpless, right? Li Changan said this, but he calmly took out a piece of glass and threw it around to play with it. Seeing this, Gong Mingji could not think too much and felt very sad. Mr. Li, be careful, these are all hard-earned money. Really? Li Changan continued to play with it, throwing the colored glass into the air again and again, these things are just little gadgets I made, how much profit can they really bring? Gong Mingji didn't understand what was said. Mr. Li, don't you know how much profit this treasure will bring? As long as it is transported to the capital, it will be a huge profit. Li Changan clicked his tongue and said, when I saw the county magistrate's expression, I thought the goods I had were not as good as the silver that the Cleaver Gang sent you.